Chapter 277. Yixing shook his head. It wasn't just that he couldn't be revered in the Qingyan region. Even if they were revered in the true Xian region, they had yet to reach the honorable realm. In the entire star continent, they were not considered experts. The star continent was vast and boundless. If one did not become an expert, how could one have the ability to search for Wei Qingxian in the entire star continent? Yixing deeply realized that even though he had the heaven-defying battle prowess to challenge those of a higher level, he was merely a 5-star martial saint. In the perspective of the entire continent, he was merely an ant. If he wanted to stand out and make a difference in the entire continent, he was far from enough. Become stronger. I want to continue to become stronger. I must continue to work hard. Yixing roared in his heart. His vision was not limited to the Green Cloud region or the True Xian region, but the entire continent. He knew that a 17-year-old 5-star martial saint, defeating a 17-year-old 7-star martial saint, was probably the only one in the Qingyan district. However, in the perspective of the entire star mainland, perhaps this was nothing. Only by broadening one's horizons and looking into the future would one not be blinded by the small benefits in front of one's eyes. Only then would one not be complacent because of a small achievement. Only then would one have an endless source of motivation to continue charging forward. Yixing bowed to Immortal Yanyue and left Shilin Court. Although he did not obtain any specific information about Wei Qingxian from Master Yanyue, he obtained an urgent desire to become stronger, a broad vision of the entire continent, and a resolute heart to constantly strive for self-improvement. After leaving Shilin Court, Yixing went to the Elixir Pavilion and found the Elixir Pavilion's outer sanctum elder, Yang Xian. Yixing had obtained quite a number of spiritual herbs in the Falling Star Arcane Realm, especially a few middle-grade spiritual herbs, which had been around for a long time and were considered rare treasures. Yixing had said that after he obtained the spirit herbs in the Falling Star Secret Realm, he had to thank Gong Yang Xian properly. Moreover, he also wanted to ask Gong Yang Xian to help him refine new spirit pills. His cultivation was already at the late stage of LV5. With the help of the middle-grade Saint Spirit pill, he could easily stabilize his cultivation to the peak of LV5. Then he could break through to LV6. Although Yixing's cultivation speed was like a rocket in the eyes of others, Yixing felt that it was not enough. It was far from his goal of standing out in the entire star continent. He wanted to reach 6-star Martial Saint as soon as possible, then 7-star Martial Saint, 8-star Martial Saint, 9-star Martial Saint, and then Astral Realm Enlightened Master. He had enough cultivation methods and inheritances to reach the 9th level of the Astral Star Realm. The only thing he lacked was time, treasures, and elixirs that could save time. Oh, perhaps this was not all that was missing. Yixing reacted. His current fate was a 9-star orange fate. This was the fate he had devoured from the number 1 inner disciple of the Dongfu sect, Du Bianqing. It was difficult for a 9-star orange fate to break through to the Astral Realm Enlightened Master. It required a certain amount of luck. If he wanted to break through to the Astral Realm, perhaps Yixing would have to think of a way to increase his fate. A fate higher than the 9-star orange fate was enough to reach the Enlightened Master's fate. This meant that Yixing had to find a target with the Enlightened Master's fate. I heard that Master Du Bian of the Dongfu sect is the number 1 genius in the history of the Dongfu sect. He is a well-known genius in the entire Green Cloud region. He is ranked as one of the 6 great childs of the Green Cloud region. Among the younger disciples of the 6 sects of the Green Cloud region, he is the only one who is on par with the top geniuses of the 4 sects of the north. His fate is as high as a 3-star yellow fate. We will probably meet in the Green Cloud Ancient Land this time. This is a good target. Yixing thought to himself. His target of devouring the Enlightened Master's fate was the first disciple of the Dongfu sect, Master Du Bian. Yixing could not bear to devour other people's fate for no reason. However, he did not have this mental barrier when it came to the people of the Dongfu sect. Not to mention that he was a disciple of the people of the Dongfu sect were already mortal enemies. Even the personal grudge between him and the Dongfu sect was a great enmity. Whenever Yixing thought about the past, the faces of his 3 comrades, Wan Xingliang, Yang Yin and Lu Chun, would always appear in Yixing's mind. He could not forget the scene of his 3 comrades dying in front of him. And all of this originated from the war between the Dongfu sect and the Falling Star sect. The next day, Yixing received his first batch of spiritual pills from the outer elder, Gongyang Xian. Yixing had given Gongyang Xian too many spiritual pills. In just one day, he could not refine too many spiritual pills. Yixing received the saint spiritual pills first for cultivation. He would wait for a few days before receiving the rest of the spiritual pills. This time, Yixing still didn't ask for a reward. However, Yixing had given him plenty of gifts as thanks. Gongyang Xian was overjoyed, and he did his best to refine the pills Yixing had requested of him. He used all of his energy to refine pills. With the saint spiritual pills in hand, Yixing practiced the falling star incantation and consolidated his cultivation base in addition to learning the array from Lin Fenghua every day. There was only a month before the opening of the Azure Cloud Ancient Land. Yixing wanted to break through to the 6-star vortex realm before the opening of the Azure Cloud Ancient Land. Yixing used the medium-grade saint spiritual pills to consolidate his cultivation base. 3 days later, after refining 1 medium-grade saint spiritual pill, Yixing felt that his cultivation base was not far from the peak 5th-star vortex realm. It seemed that with 2 or 3 medium-grade saint spiritual pills, his cultivation base would be completely consolidated at the peak 5th-star vortex realm. He would then be able to break through to the 6th-star vortex realm. In the blink of an eye, another 2 days had passed. The people of the Spirit Moon sect stayed in the Falling Star sect for 5 days. In these 5 days, the disciples of the Spirit Moon sect toured all the places that could be visited in the Falling Star sect. The 2 sects also held 2 exchange banquets. Today, the Spirit Moon sect master said goodbye and led the people of the Spirit Moon sect back to the Spirit Moon sect. In these 5 days, Yixing was either studying array formations or cultivating the falling star incantation. He did not attend any of the exchange banquets between the 2 sections. Today, when the Spirit Moon sect left, the core disciples of the Falling Star sect came out to see them off. After some pleasantries and thanking the Falling Star sect for their hospitality, Lung Xingyue led the people of the Spirit Moon sect out of the main hall of the Falling Star sect. She summoned the Luan demonic beast and prepared to leave. At this moment, a golden light was flying towards them from the distant horizon. Soon, it turned into a giant golden eagle and appeared in everyone's field of vision. There was a flame rune on the eagle's head. It was a level 3 demonic beast, the golden flame eagle. Seeing the golden flame eagle from afar, the perfected persons were stunned. The 3 perfected persons of the Spirit Moon sect stopped in their tracks and did not rush to leave. The golden flame eagle was a kind of grassland eagle. There were not many of them in the true Xian domain. The Qingyan region did not have this kind of demonic beast and no sect had it. Obviously, the person who came was not a martial artist from the Qingyan region, but from somewhere else in the true Xian domain. Soon, the golden flame eagle arrived in the sky above the Falling Star sect. It swooped down and landed in the square in front of the main hall. A middle-aged man in black stood on the back of the golden flame eagle. His expression was cold, and he exuded an extremely powerful aura that was intimidating. Yixing scanned it with his superbrain and was shocked. The golden flame eagle was equivalent to a level 3 perfected being. A level 3 perfected being. The black-clothed middle-aged man was even more terrifying. He was a level 4 perfected being, 1 level higher than Lin Shuyuan. This was the first mid-level perfected persons that Yixing had seen. This made Yixing very curious. Where did this 4th-star venerable come from? And why did he come to the Falling Star sect? The golden flame eagle landed, and the middle-aged man in black jumped down. He raised his hand and a black scroll appeared in his hand. The middle-aged man in black shouted, "Falling Star sect master Lu Tianyuan, receive the 9 sect alliance's decree." Lu Tianyuan's expression turned solemn when he heard this. The other perfected persons also looked respectful. The 9 sect alliance was the alliance of the 9 exalted sects. It was the supreme organization of the true Xian domain, and dominated the entire true Xian domain. Lu Tianyuan and Lung Xingyue took a step forward and cupped their fists. Falling Star sect master Lu Tianyuan, Spirit Moon sect master Lung Xingyue, greets the envoy. The middle-aged man in black looked at Lung Xingyue and said, Spirit Moon Sect Master is here too? Great, I don't have to go to the Spirit Moon Sect again. You can receive the decree together. Lu Tianyuan and Lung Xingyue said respectfully, We respectfully receive the decree. The middle-aged man in black opened the black scroll and said, The 9-Sect Alliance's decree. On the 1st of January next year, the 9-Sect Alliance will hold a Young Hero Assembly. All the young talents of the major sects in the True Xian domain, and all the young talents of rogue cultivators below the age of 25 and above, are to attend the assembly in the 9 Heavens City. Those who do not attend will be killed. Fight. Let's go to the 4th update. I must persevere. The 4th update will be very late. It might be around 1:30 p.m. Brothers, you can watch it tomorrow. Chapter 278. Those who don't go will be exterminated. The black-clothed middle-aged man's tone was heavy. It was like a heavy hammer pounding on everyone's heart, causing them to be shocked. On one hand, the black-clothed middle-aged man was very powerful. He was a 4-star sage. His heavy tone was already intimidating. On the other hand, the black-clothed middle-aged man was reading the imperial edict of the 9-Sect Alliances. How powerful were the 9-Sect Alliances? They were the rulers of the entire True Xian region. Only the 9-Sect Alliances dared to utter the word exterminate to any sect in the True Xian region. With the 9-Sect Alliances' strength, it was easy for them to exterminate a sect. Lu Tianyuan and Lung Xingyu looked at each other in horror. What was the 9-Sect Alliances trying to do? What Young Hero Assembly? Did they want to challenge the genius disciples in the entire True Xian region? That shouldn't be the case. Which sect had the genius disciples of the 9 high sects? Moreover, even if they wanted to select the genius disciples, they should have selected some young children to test their heaven's fate. This way they could be brought to the sect for nurturing. What was the point of holding a Young Hero Assembly and asking the other sects to send their genius disciples? If they recruited the genius disciples of the other sects, it would cause the other sects to be disgusted. Although the 9 high sects weren't afraid of the other sects being disgusted, these genius disciples had their own sects and masters. Even if they were forced to join the 9 high sects, they might not be able to gain their loyalty. If they were given higher-level inheritances and martial arts, they might end up losing their wives and soldiers. Without loyalty, what if they betrayed the sect when they were fully fledged? The 9 high sects were filled with experts and wise people. They shouldn't be that stupid. However, if it wasn't to select the geniuses of the other sects, why would they spend so much money and effort to hold the Young Hero Assembly? Lu Tianyuan and Lung Xingyu couldn't figure it out. The two of them said respectfully, We will obey the imperial edict. The black-clothed middle-aged man nodded. With a wave of his hand, 2 black scrolls flew towards Lu Tianyuan and Lung Xingyu. After the two of them received the scrolls, the black-clothed middle-aged man said, Take a good look. There are specific rules for the rewards. The 9-Sect Alliances attach great importance to this Young Hero Assembly. The rewards are very generous. After he finished speaking, the black-clothed middle-aged man turned around and left. Lu Tianyuan and Lung Xingyu were not in a hurry to read the scroll. Instead, they bowed and sent him off. They cupped their fists and said, Farewell, esteemed envoy. The black-clothed middle-aged man leaped onto the golden flame eagle's back. The golden flame eagle spread its wings and soared into the sky, quickly disappearing from everyone's sight. Only when the golden flame eagle completely disappeared from sight did the crowd begin to discuss the Young Hero Assembly. Lu Tianyuan and Lung Xingyu looked at each other and opened the black scrolls. Immediately, the two of them sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time and exclaimed, Resurrection pill? The perfected ones of the older generation were all shocked when they heard this. The younger disciples blinked their eyes and were filled with curiosity. They did not know what this revival pill was and why the 2 sect masters were so surprised. Lu Tianyuan continued, The 9 great sects are so generous. The first place of the Young Hero Assembly is actually rewarded with a supreme grade spirit pill. This is a priceless treasure. Lung Xingyu knew that the younger disciples rarely knew about the revival pill. She said, The revival pill is a supreme grade spirit pill. As its name suggests, This pill has the heaven-defying effect of bringing the dead back to life. I heard that even if a person is dead, as long as they can consume the revival pill within an hour, they can be brought back to life. Even if their limbs are cut off, they can be regrown. Regrown. Lung Xingyue's words sounded like thunder in Yi Xing's ears. In an instant, Yi Xing thought of his master, Zi Shanhou. Zi Shanhou's legs were cut off by Hua Tianshu more than 10 years ago, and he was still disabled. Hearing that the revival pill had such a heaven-defying effect, Yi Xing's blood surged. He wanted to participate in the Young Hero Assembly. He wanted to rush to first place. He wanted to be rewarded with the revival pill. Then he would cure his master Zi Shanhou's disabled legs. Yi Xing asked, "The revival pill can only bring a dead person back to life within an hour. Is there a time limit for regrown?" Lu Tianyuan looked at Yi Xing thoughtfully. Hua Tianshu also looked at Yi Xing at the same time, but she quickly looked away. Obviously, they all guessed that Yi Xing's question had something to do with Zi Shanhou. Hua Tianfeng. Lung Xingyue said, "There is no time limit for regrown. Even if the limbs were cut off 10 or 20 years ago, they can be regrown after consuming the revival pill." Yi Xing was overjoyed, and his face was full of excitement. At this time, a disciple asked, "If the head is cut off, can it regrow after consuming the revival pill?" All the elders showed funny expressions. Lung Xingyue said unhappily, "If the head is cut off, even the gods can't save it. How can it regrow? Let alone the supreme grade revival pill. Even a profound pill won't work." What a pity. Lu Tianyuan looked at the black scroll for a while and sighed. The 9 great sects really put in a lot of effort in this Young Hero Assembly. As long as you can get into the top 10, you will be rewarded handsomely. However, the 9 great sects have countless young geniuses. The geniuses of other sects can't be compared to them. This reward is given by the 9 great sects. Only the disciples of the 9 great sects can enjoy it. Many people showed their emotions. Obviously, they had seen the strength of the 9 great sects' young disciples. However, there were many young disciples who didn't understand. They only knew about the young geniuses of the Qingyan region. Some of them didn't even know about the young geniuses of the Qingyan region. For example, Yi Xing knew that the most outstanding young geniuses of the Qingyan region were the 6 great young masters. However, he only knew about Master Watanabe of the Dongfu sect. As for the 5 great young masters of the 4 great sects in the north, Yi Xing only knew about the 5 great young masters. As for who they were and which sect they belonged to, Yi Xing didn't know. There were many people who were as ignorant as Yi Xing. A core disciple of the Spirit Moon sect asked, "Sect leader, how powerful can the young disciples of the 9 great sects be?" Lung Xingyue glanced at that disciple and said, "It's a bit too far-fetched to talk about the young disciples of the 9 great sects. Let me put it this way. In our Qingyan region, the most talented young disciples of the 10 great sects are the 6 great young masters. They have the strength of an 8-star martial saint. The number 1 Yin Yang young master has the battle record of defeating a 9-star martial saint. However, the Yin Yang young master is only ranked 63rd on the Earth Profound list. The other 5 great young masters can't even enter the Earth Profound list. More than 90% of the top 50 disciples of the 9 great sects are disciples of the 9 great sects. The top 20 disciples are all disciples of the 9 great sects." Some of the young disciples who heard this for the first time all sucked in a breath of cold air, including Yi Xing, the number 1 Yin Yang young master of the Qingyan region, who has the battle record of defeating a 9-star martial saint, is only ranked 63rd on the Earth Profound list. This means that there are 62 young geniuses in the true Xian region who are stronger than the Yin Yang young master. Earth Profound list? The Spirit Moon sect disciple who asked just now somewhat understood what the Earth Profound list represented. Lung Xingyue explained, "In the true Xian region, there are 2 rankings of strength. The ranking of the older generation is called the Heavenly Profound list, and the Earth Profound list is the ranking of the younger generation. It only includes the younger generation martial artists who are under the age of 25. Although the rankings are not determined through competition and may not be completely accurate, it is still based on each person's battle record." In order to let the young disciples know clearly about the Earth Profound list, Lu Tianyuan explained in detail. The Earth Profound list has a total of 72 young geniuses. Those who can be ranked in the top 10 are at least astral martial saints. There are even a few astral martial saints who can't even enter the top 10. Those who are ranked in the top 30 are at least half-step astral martial saints. Those who are ranked in the top 30 are at least first-rate astral martial saints. Even those who are ranked at the bottom are at least mid-ninth level 9-star martial saints. In other words, among the younger generation of the true Xian region, there are many early 9th level 9-star martial saints who can't even be ranked at the bottom of the Earth Profound list. When everyone heard this, they were secretly shocked. Yixing was also stunned. With his current strength, he can't even be ranked on the Earth Profound list. He is 108,000 miles away from first place. The following is free 4th update. I'm done. This is the 6th day in a row. I haven't stayed up to write for a long time, but today, I stayed up until almost 2 o'clock in the morning. Not for anything else, but for the persistence in my heart. 4th update, I want to keep it up. I want to see how many days I can keep it up. Of course, there is a more important reason, and that is I want the monthly votes. This month, I've worked hard. I want to get the 1,000 yuan monthly vote award for the Xuanhuan category. Casting a monthly vote doesn't benefit me at all. However, if my brothers accumulate monthly votes one by one, I will be able to get a place in the monthly votes ranking. As long as I can get into the top 6 of the Xuanhuan category, excluding the overall ranking and the new book, the Archer God will be able to get $1,000 as a monthly vote reward. I'll update more, brothers, let me get the award by voting more. This is the reward given to me by my brothers. I know that if I don't update more, there will be no monthly votes and no award. So I've persevered. Today, I'll continue to update 4th update. 6th day in a row. As for whether the monthly votes can get the award, it will depend on the brothers. The Arrow God has to move up 1 rank on the Xuanhuan monthly votes list to be able to get the 1,000 yuan reward. Brothers, there are only a few days left this month. Don't waste the monthly votes. Please vote for the Arrow God, thank you. Chapter 279. Yixing had always set his sights on the entire continent. In fact, he didn't really understand the structure of the entire continent, nor did he understand the younger generation of the continent. He didn't even understand the younger generation of the true Xian domain. It was only today that he heard the news. In the past, he only knew that the younger generation of the true Xian domain must be full of geniuses, but he didn't know how many geniuses there were. Now the Earth Profound ranking gave him a direct understanding of the younger generation of the true Xian domain. In just the true Xian domain, there were more than 10 astral realm enlightened masters among the younger generation. It was really shocking. Compared to the younger generation of the true Xian domain, only the Yin Yang master of the Qingyun domain was ranked on the Earth Profound ranking. Moreover, he was ranked 63rd, which was really a bit behind. This made Yixing feel a lot of pressure. With his current strength, it was impossible for him to get first place in the Young Hero Assembly. This way, he wouldn't be able to get the Resurrection Elixir. The Young Hero Assembly would be held on the 1st of January next year. There were only 5 months left, but Yixing was only a 5-star martial saint. Could it be that he could compete with the younger generation of the enlightened masters in 5 months? Yixing clenched his fists tightly. It seemed impossible, but his blood was boiling, and a fighting spirit surged in his heart. This was related to the recovery of Zishan Ho's legs. Even if the pressure was great and the hope was slim, Yixing had to work hard for this goal. Not only did Yixing feel the pressure, but all the younger generation of the Falling Star sect and the Spirit Moon sect also felt the pressure. Moreover, unlike Yixing, the other younger generation of the Spirit Moon sect couldn't resist the pressure. They couldn't see any hope of catching up. Putting away the black scroll, Lung Xingyu thanked Lu Tianyuan again and left. Lu Tianyuan cupped his hands and said, "I wish you all a safe journey." The Spirit Moon sect's group left on the Luan bird and soon disappeared from sight. After Lu Tianyuan watched the Spirit Moon sect disciples leave, he approached Yixing and patted Yixing's shoulder. There are still 5 months before the Young Hero competition. Next month, the Qingyun Ancient Land will open. The Qingyun Ancient Land is full of opportunities. You are very lucky, so work hard. If you can get a few opportunities in the Qingyan ancient land, you may shine in the Young Hero competition 5 months later. You may rush up the Earth Profound list and show the glory of the Falling Stars sect. After thinking for a while, Lu Tianyuan continued. Among the younger generation disciples of the Qingyan region, only the Sun Moon sect's Yin Yang Young Master has entered the Earth Profound ranking. You have a high chance of becoming the second one. At that time, you can also become one of the Young Masters and be on par with the Yin Yang Young Master. He was only ranked on the Earth Profound ranking and was on par with Yin Yang Young Master, who was ranked 63rd on the Earth Profound ranking. Yixing smiled. His goal was not just this. To him, entering the Earth Profound ranking was not a problem. The problem was to become number 1 on the Earth Profound ranking. Of course, he could also hide this idea in his heart. If he said it out loud, others would think that he had lost his mind. Yixing smiled and said, "Sect Master, I will work hard." At the same time, Hua Tianshu looked at Lu Tianyuan and Yixing with a meaningful smile. After leaving the Falling Stars Palace, on the way to the Formation Elder's mansion, Yixing asked Lin Fenghua for advice. "Master, I don't know much about the younger generation geniuses of the Qingyan region. Can you introduce me to the 6 young masters?" Before Lin Fenghua could speak, Lin Tongyu beat her to it. "I know this. The 6 young masters are the Yin Yang Young Master, the Great Sun Young Master, the Thunder Young Master, the Tianluo Young Master, the Dark Nether Young Master, and the Watanabe Young Master. They are at least peak 8-star martial saints." Yixing had risen too quickly. Although his strength was higher than Lin Tongyu's, his understanding of the Qingyan region was not as good as Lin Tongyu's. It was Yixing's first time hearing the names of the 6 young masters. Yixing asked, "Which sects do they belong to? Is there no ranking for their strength?" Lin Tongyu said excitedly. It was rare for her to be Yixing's teacher. "The strongest one is the Yin Yang Young Master. He's the publicly acknowledged number 1. As for the other 5, there isn't any ranking. Their strength should be about the same. Among the 6 young masters, the Sun Moon sect has 2 of them. The Yin Yang Young Master and the Great Sun Young Master are both from the Sun Moon sect. The Thunder Young Master is from the Blue Thunder sect. The Tianluo Young Master is from the Tianluo sect." Yixing's eyebrows twitched slightly as he said, "The Sun Moon sect actually has 2 young master level freaks. Furthermore, the number 1 young master, the Yin Yang Young Master, is also a disciple of the Sun Moon sect. In terms of junior disciples, the Sun Moon sect is very strong." Lin Tongyu nodded and said, "They are indeed very strong. The most famous sect in the Qingyan region is the Sun Moon sect." Lin Fenghua said, "It's not just the younger generation. In terms of overall strength, the Sun Moon sect is also the strongest. However, because of Sir Watanabe, the Sun Moon sect has been close to the East Fu sect in recent years. To our Falling Stars sect, they are not friends but enemies." Yixing's eyes flashed. He saw young Master Watanabe as his prey. He hoped that the Sun Moon sect's Yin Yang Young Master and Great Sun Young Master would not interfere with his feud with the Dongfu sect. Lin Fenghua said, "Among the 6 great young masters, the most outstanding ones are the Yin Yang Master and Master Watanabe. The other 4 great young masters are able to defeat their peers. However, the Yin Yang Master and Master Watanabe are able to challenge those of a higher level. Their cultivation is 1 level lower than that of the other 4 great young masters. They are peak 7-star martial saints. However, in terms of strength, Master Watanabe is not inferior to the other 4. Yixing was stunned. He thought that the 6 young masters were all 8-star martial saints. He did not expect the Yin Yang Young Master and Young Master Watanabe to be geniuses who could challenge those of a higher level, especially the Yin Yang Young Master, who could defeat opponents of 2 levels higher. Lin Fenghua glanced at Yixing and said, "Yixing, you are very powerful when it comes to challenging those of a higher level. However, don't underestimate them, especially the Yin Yang Young Master. He is the number 1 genius in the Qingyan region in the past 1,000 years. He has a 6-star yellow fate star, and his astrology is of the same origin. He can also defeat opponents of 2 levels higher. Even in the entire True Xian domain, the Yin Yang Young Master is a top genius. In a few years, when he becomes a Star Realm Enlightened being, He will definitely shine on the Earth Profound ranking. He might even be in the top 10. Yixing nodded. The star continent was vast and there were many geniuses. He was not Yunfeng. He would not think that there were only a few people in the world who could be compared with him. He would never underestimate other geniuses. However, he was very confident in himself after comparing himself with the Yin Yang Master. When he was a 5-star martial saint, he could defeat a peak 7-star martial saint. However, when the Yin Yang Master was a peak 7-star martial saint, he could only defeat a middle 9-star martial saint. There was still a gap between him and Yixing. However, the Yin Yang Master's record of defeating a middle 9-star martial saint did not mean that this was the limit of his strength. He might be able to defeat a late 9-star martial saint, but he did not show it. However, no matter what, Yixing's strength had already surpassed the Yin Yang Master. If he used all his trump cards and unleashed his full strength, the Yin Yang Master would naturally not be a match for him. Therefore, although the Yin Yang Master was outstanding, Yixing believed that he was far superior to him in terms of fighting against those of a higher level. Not to mention the same level. Even if Yixing was one level lower than the Yin Yang Master, he would not be afraid of him. As Lin Fenghua walked, she said, "The 4 sects in the north are all 1-star sects, while the 6 sects in the south are 1-star sects. Regardless of whether it is the strength of the sects or the foundation of the sects, there is a big gap between them. Among the younger generation disciples of the 4 sects, other than the young masters, there are still outstanding disciples. Not to mention 7-star martial saints, each sect has a few of them. As for 8-star martial saints, the 4 sects have 1 each. They are all very strong, and can defeat the disciples of the 6 sects in the south. Yixing, if you meet them in the Qingyan ancient land, you have to be careful and avoid them." Yixing nodded and said, "The sects are of different levels and have different foundations. There is indeed a big gap. However, as long as I break through to 6-star martial saint, I will not be afraid of them. Thank you, brothers, for your support. Today's monthly votes have exceeded 100 for the first time this month. Thank you. Today, I will continue to update." Chapter 280. After a few more days, Yixing's cultivation had reached the peak of the 5th level even before he finished absorbing the 3rd Saint spiritual pill. Yixing could feel the barrier of the 6th level of the celestial vortex realm. Once he broke through the barrier, he would be able to advance to a 6-star martial saint. With Yixing's martial attainment and talent, his strength would increase tremendously every time he broke through. As long as he became a 6-star martial saint and entered the Qingyan ancient land, Yixing would not be afraid of anyone. Even if he encountered the Yin Yang Master, he would be able to fight or even kill him. Yixing's falling star art had reached the 6th level. His true origin energy was extremely dense, and could be compared to a 7-star martial saint. He had a great advantage in breaking through the barrier of the 6th level of the celestial vortex realm. However, after a few days, the barrier of the 6th level of the celestial vortex realm did not budge under the impact of Yixing's star essence. Yixing's efforts were in vain. This puzzled Yixing. He was now a 9-star orange fate. It was not a big breakthrough from the celestial vortex realm to the astral realm. There should not be a bottleneck. With the belief that he would be able to break through the barrier and become a 6-star martial saint, Yixing spent the rest of his time on trying to break through the barrier of the 6th level of the celestial vortex realm. Day after day, after 10 days, Yixing's attainment in the copper wall formation had reached the minor completion realm. However, his cultivation was still unable to break through. More than 20 days had passed, and the Qingyan ancient land was about to open in a few days. Yixing saw that his cultivation was still unable to break through and started to panic. On this day, after Yixing finished learning about array formations at Lin Fenghua's place, he asked Lin Fenghua for guidance. "Master, my cultivation has been at the peak of the 5th level for more than half a month, but I can't break through to the 6th level no matter what." Not only was Lin Fenghua a grade 3 array master, but he was also a Taoist in the astral realm. He also had extremely high attainments in martial arts. Lin Fenghua glanced at Yixing and said, "Your cultivation is increasing very quickly, but your heaven's will isn't high. It's normal for you to encounter a bottleneck without the help of treasures." Yixing knew very well that it had nothing to do with the heavens if he couldn't make a breakthrough in his cultivation. Yixing said, "What if it's not fate? Could there be other factors involved?" Lin Fenghua pondered for a moment before nodding. Cultivation isn't just about cultivating one's martial arts, it's also about cultivating one's mind. Your cultivation is rising too quickly, and if your state of mind isn't able to keep up, it's normal for you to encounter bottlenecks. If your state of mind isn't able to keep up, you might even end up developing inner demons. In the worst-case scenario, your cultivation might even go berserk, crippling your cultivation, and leaving your life hanging by a thread. Yixing pondered for a moment. His state of mind shouldn't be unable to keep up. He felt that his heart was firm and unwavering. He could remain calm even if Mount Tai collapsed in front of him. Yixing muttered to himself, "I feel that my state of mind is very good." Lin Fenghua smiled faintly and said, "That's your own opinion. If your state of mind isn't able to keep up, it's not just because your state of mind isn't strong enough. A person with a strong state of mind might also encounter obstacles in their state of mind. Furthermore, the chances of them going berserk are even higher than those with a weak state of mind." Yixing's heart skipped a beat. With a solemn expression he said, "Master, please give me some pointers." Lin Fenghua said, "People with a strong state of mind may be too determined and too persistent. You have to know that hardness cannot last long and softness cannot be defended. If you keep straining the string in your heart, you may be able to break through without any hindrance at the beginning. But because you are too persistent, once the persistence in your heart reaches a critical point and you can't relax, you may reach a bottleneck and not be able to make any progress. At this time, the more anxious you are, the harder you work, the more stagnant you will be. More haste, less speed. This is the principle. I see that you are very persistent. Sometimes you need to relax. Combining hardness and softness is the way to a long time." Stubbornness? Inner demons? When Yixing heard Lin Fenghua's words, he suddenly had a feeling of enlightenment, and was suddenly enlightened. He understood. Since his cultivation bottleneck wasn't due to the heavenly mandate, then it must have appeared in his state of mind. Because his cultivation had been smooth sailing and he had broken through again and again, his heart had been tense and had never relaxed for a moment. Therefore, a problem had occurred when he was breaking through to the 6-star martial saint realm. At this time, he should relax and rest. However, he had blindly pursued breakthroughs and kept sprinting, causing him to be unable to break through the bottleneck. His cultivation had been stuck at this point. If he continued sprinting with all his strength, not to mention this month, he might not be able to break through the bottleneck next month, or even the month after that. Lin Fenghua continued, "Look at your martial uncle Gu Tianshang. He is too stubborn. Moreover, because of decades of stubbornness, he has already formed an inner demon. Now that the inner demon has been born, even if he stops and relaxes his mind, it will be useless. As long as he continues to persevere, there might be a chance to break through the inner demon, achieve enlightenment, and become a third-grade array master. However, this chance is very small." Yixing nodded repeatedly. He could see that Gu Tianshang was too stubborn. It turned out that he had unknowingly embarked on the same path as Gu Tianshang. If it were not for Lin Fenghua's guidance, Yixing would not have realized his own problem. This was the so-called "the onlooker sees the game more clearly than the player involved." Realizing his own problem, of course, he had to find a way to solve it. Yixing said, "Master, I have realized that I have been too stubborn. Since I started cultivating and entered, though I have been thinking of ways to improve my cultivation and strength. I have not slacked off for even a moment. These days I want to relax. Whether it is martial arts or arrays, I will not think about them for the time being. There are still a few days before the Qingyan ancient land opens. I plan to take this opportunity to go back to Zishan Prefecture. First, I want to see Master Zishan Ho. Second, I have not been back for more than a year since I left the family. I want to go back and have a look." Lin Fenghua nodded and said, "Sometimes some concerns in the heart will affect the purity of the state of mind, and have an impact on the breakthrough of cultivation. Especially when the state of mind is stubborn, the impact is particularly obvious. It is good to go back to the family and have a look." On the same day, Yixing rode Old Black back to Zishan Prefecture and saw Zishan Ho. Zishan Ho's posture was still tall and straight, and his aura was still majestic. However, the white hair on his temples gave him a sense of vicissitudes. Yixing had seen this sense of vicissitudes on Zishan Ho before, but later, because of him, this sense of vicissitudes disappeared and was replaced by a high-spirited spirit. Today, the sense of vicissitudes reappeared. Obviously, it was related to the news of Yixing's death in the Falling Star Secret Land. Although Yixing came out of the Falling Star Secret Land and proved that the news of his death was false, Zishan Ho's hope had been shattered for several months. The blow he received was not easy to recover from. After not seeing Zishan Ho for more than half a year, Yixing's heart tightened when he saw the vicissitudes of life on Zishan Ho. There was an indescribable feeling. He felt that he had been too obsessed with cultivation. After coming out of the Falling Star Secret Land, he should have gone back to Zishan Prefecture and personally reported his safety to Master Zishan Ho. In the back hall of Zishan Ho's residence, Yixing and Zishan Ho sat opposite each other, reporting his experience in the Falling Star Secret Land to Zishan Ho. Other than the gains in the Starry Hall, Yixing kept the same as what he had said in the Falling Star sect. He told Zishan Ho everything he had experienced in the Falling Star Secret Land, including the killing of Hua Tianshu's disciple, He Hongjiao. Hearing Yixing's story, the smile on Zishan Ho's face gradually became brighter. Yixing felt that the vicissitudes of life on Master's body gradually receded, and that high-spirited spirit returned. Good. After listening to Yixing's story, Zishan Ho repeatedly said good, and his voice was filled with emotion. Yixing, your experience and growth have indeed greatly exceeded my expectations. How long has it been? In the blink of an eye, you have already surpassed me. 15 years ago, when I entered the Azure Cloud Ancient Land, I was 24 years old, and my cultivation was at the late stage of the 7th Star Vortex realm. Although your cultivation is not as good as mine, your strength has already surpassed mine. Moreover, you are only 17 years old now. I really don't know what kind of achievements you will have in the future. For a monstrous genius like you, fate can't restrict you at all. Second update. Only 10 more votes, and today's monthly votes will exceed 150. Please give me 10 more votes. Chapter 281. Yixing's Sagittarius constellation and Black Hole constellation. Other than himself, only Zishan Ho knew about it. Zishan Ho was very clear that Yixing's two supreme constellations greatly increased Yixing's strength. Since Yixing had defeated a top 7-star martial saint, it meant that Yixing had used all his trump cards. Even an 8-star martial saint would not be able to compete with him. Therefore, Zishan Ho knew that Yixing's current strength was much stronger than when he entered the Clear Cloud Ancient Land. Moreover, this was only Yixing's strength when he was a 5-star martial saint. Now that Yixing's cultivation was at the peak of the 5th-star martial saint realm, who knew when he would break through to the 6th-star martial saint realm? At that time, his strength would be even more terrifying. In the Clear Cloud Ancient Land, the disciples of the Clear Cloud region's top 10 sects would gather. If they met some murderous people from the opposing camp, they might lose their lives. With Yixing's strength, Zishan Ho was not worried about Yixing's safety. In the Clear Cloud region, the dangerous ones should be Yixing's enemies. Zishan Ho asked, "How's your archery cultivation? How's your attainment in the 4 symbols arrow art?" Yixing said truthfully, "Disciples' archery has reached the 2nd realm. I can barely follow my heart and reach the great accomplishment of the 4 symbols arrow art." After Yixing finished speaking, the hall suddenly became silent. Zishan Ho looked at Yixing and even forgot to breathe for a moment. After a full 2 breaths of time, Zishan Ho said in surprise, "The 2nd realm of archery, and the 2nd transformation of heart? The great accomplishment of the 4 symbols arrow art?" No wonder Zishan Ho was shocked. Yixing's archery attainment was indeed shocking. When Zishan Ho entered the Clear Cloud Ancient Land, his archery was still far from the 2nd realm. The 4 symbols arrow art had only reached the small accomplishment, which was not at the same level as Yixing. Yixing nodded affirmatively. Zishan Ho's voice was still filled with shock as he said, "With this level of attainments in archery, If you were given a good middle-grade spirit bow, you would be able to kill an 8-star martial saint in your normal state. If you were to combine it with the Sagittarius constellation, I'm afraid that even a 9-star martial saint could be killed. Bows and arrows were fundamentally different from other weapons. Firstly, they had a long attack range. Secondly, they contained great power. For example, a middle-grade spirit bow. As long as one could draw the bow, the arrows shot out would be enough to kill a 6-star martial saint. A good middle-grade spirit bow could kill a 7-star martial saint, or even an 8-star martial saint. If Yi Xing had a good mid-grade spiritual bow, with Yi Xing's attainments in the 4 symbols archery art, it would be more than enough to kill an 8-star martial sage. As for the Sagittarius constellation, it could greatly increase the power of the bow and arrow. In this state, it would not be surprising to kill a 9-star martial saint. It was not surprising, but in reality, it was a 5-star martial saint who killed a 9-star martial saint. There was a gap of 4 realms in between. This kind of leapfrogging was simply too terrifying. It completely broke the limit of leapfrogging based on martial art strength. Even in the legends, leapfrogging could not exceed 3 realms. After all, with every higher realm in cultivation, one's strength would increase greatly. It was impossible for one's strength to leapfrog infinitely. Only an extraordinary weapon like the bow and arrow could break the limit of leapfrogging. This was because it was not the martial artist's personal strength that leapfrogged. It was the strength of the bow and arrow itself. Although the limit of a leapfrog challenge should not exceed 3 realms, since ancient times, there had been countless cultivators who had died at the hands of cultivators who were 4 realms, 5 realms, or even more. It was not as if there had never been anyone who had died at the hands of cultivators who were 4 realms, 5 realms, or even more. However, this was not a victory in terms of strength. It could be due to various reasons. It could be due to the environment, it could be due to a sneak attack, it could be due to the help of external objects. Such leapfrogging obviously could not be counted as a conventional leapfrogging based on strength. Using a high-grade bow and arrow to kill the enemy was using external objects. It could not be counted as a normal leapfrogging. The bow and arrow could break the conventional record of leapfrogging. From this, it could be seen that this was indeed a terrifying weapon. It could be counted as a non-conventional weapon. After Zi Shanhou finished speaking, he took out a bow. This bow was nearly 2 meters tall. When it stood upright, it was as tall as Yi Xing. The body of the bow was made of purple metal, and exuded a noble light. Yi Xing's pupil shrank. He recognized this bow. It was Zi Shanhou's purple cloud bow. Zi Shanhou handed the purple cloud bow to Yi Xing and said, "A treasure sword should be given to the best swordsman, and a treasure bow should also be given to the best archer. This purple cloud bow is a top-notch mid-grade spiritual bow. If you use this bow to shoot with all your strength, it is enough to kill a 9-star martial saint. Take it with you and it will ensure that you will be unimpeded in the Qingyan ancient land." Yi Xing took the purple cloud bow. He was excited and his blood was boiling. With this bow he could kill a 9-star martial saint. Such a weapon could be said to be terrifying. Yi Xing said, "Master, you gave me the purple cloud bow. What will you use?" Zi Shanhou said, "I have a spare bow. The purple cloud bow is very useful to you. It is most suitable for you to use. However, with your current cultivation, it is extremely difficult to draw the purple cloud bow. Even if you can draw it, I am afraid that it will consume more than half of your physical strength and celestial essence. Generally, try not to use it." Bows and arrows, as an extraordinary weapon that could break through the limits of those of a higher realm, had advantages but also disadvantages. Because the arrow shot was closely related to the strength of the bow, when a martial artist's strength was too weak, it was impossible to draw a bow that was too strong. Moreover, as the martial artist's cultivation increased, the increase in the power of the bow would not be very large. This was because the strength of the bow accounted for a large part of the arrow's power. When the martial artist's strength increased, the grade of the bow would not increase. In this regard, it could not be compared to conventional weapons such as sabers, spears, swords, and staffs. As the martial artist's cultivation increased, their strength increased, and their martial arts attainments increased. The power of the martial arts they displayed with sabers, spears, swords, and staffs would become stronger and stronger. Even if it was a 9-star martial saint, having a low-grade spiritual weapon and not having one were two completely different concepts. However, if two archers had comprehended the second realm of archery, there was basically no difference whether they had a low-grade spiritual bow or not. For an archer, only a stronger bow could exert power far beyond their own strength. Once the bow's grade could not keep up with their own strength, there was no substantive difference whether they had a bow or not. It was because of this that Zi Shanho said that the purple firmament bow in Yi Xing's hands was more useful than in his own. Yi Xing could use the purple firmament bow to kill enemies 4 realms higher than him, but Zi Shanho could not. Moreover, when Yi Xing became a 9-star martial saint, it would be impossible for him to use the purple firmament bow to kill enemies 4 realms higher than him. At that time, he would not even be able to kill enemies 3 or 2 realms higher than him. At that time, the purple firmament bow would be much less useful than it was now. I understand, Master. Yi Xing stroked the purple firmament bow, like a peerless swordsman stroking the treasured sword that accompanied him throughout his life. Zi Shanho waved his hand, and another quiver of purple arrows appeared in front of Yi Xing. Zi Shanho said, "The purple firmament bow is too strong. Ordinary arrows simply cannot withstand its power. Before it can kill the enemy, it will directly explode. The arrows shot from the purple firmament bow must be forged from spirit metal. This quiver of purple gold arrows was forged from the peak of low-grade spirit metal. It can completely withstand the power of the purple firmament bow and increase its power. Good arrows." Yi Xing put away the purple firmament bow and took the quiver. He took out a purple gold arrow and looked at it, praising it. In the quiver, there were a total of 30 purple gold arrows. Each purple gold arrow was forged from the peak of low-grade spirit metal, and the material of 10 purple gold arrows was enough to forge a low-grade spirit weapon sword. In other words, just these 30 purple gold arrows were equivalent to 3 low-grade spirit weapon swords, and were extremely precious. And the arrows, under the shooting of a strong bow, had a terrifying collision force when they hit an object. Even if it was an arrow equivalent to a spirit weapon, it could only be used a few times. It could be seen that the consumption of a good bow and some good arrows was extremely shocking. If it was used frequently, an ordinary person would not be able to withstand it. Yi Xing also put away the purple gold arrows. He stood up and respectfully bowed to Zi Shanho, saying, "Thank you, Master, for giving me the bow and arrows." Zi Shanho stood up and pulled Yi Xing up, saying, 15 years ago, in the Azure Cloud ancient land, because my strength was not enough, I could only obtain the first volume of the Azure Cloud Eye. Now that you have the purple firmament bow in your hands, there is hope for you to obtain the second volume of the Azure Cloud Eye. The complete Azure Cloud Eye is a peak-grade spirit weapon, a priceless treasure. If you can obtain it, it would be a great fortune. Chapter 282. That night, Yi Xing stayed in Zi Shanho's residence. Zi Shanho had been to Qingyan ancient land once and told Yi Xing everything he knew about it. This included the place where he had obtained the Eye of Green Cloud. Through the conversation, Yi Xing had a better understanding of Qingyan ancient land. Qingyan ancient land was similar to the 100 illusion formation that Yi Xing had entered when he entered Meteor Sect. It was an area that was enclosed by a formation. However, the 100 illusions formation couldn't compare to the size of the area and the quality of the formation. It was said that the formation in Qingyan ancient land was at least a level 3 formation. Furthermore, the formation contained the power of space. This meant that some of the formations had reached level 4. This was because only level 4 formations contain the power of space. In Qingyan ancient land, there were many disordered spaces. When you climb a mountain, you will find that you are not at the top of the mountain. You might be in a valley, or on an island in a lake, or in an ancient palace. When you jump off the cliff, you will realize that although you are walking on flat ground, in fact, you are stepping on solid ground. Of course, this was rare. Every time you entered a disordered space, it meant that you had entered a treasure land. There were treasures in the disordered space. There were all kinds of treasures. They could be secret martial arts manuals, elixirs, metal materials, natural treasures, spirit weapons, and so on. However, whether you could obtain these treasures depended on your luck and strength. If you were lucky, You would enter a disordered space where there were no demonic beasts or puppet martial artists guarding you. You could obtain the treasures directly. If you were unlucky, the treasures would be guarded by demonic beasts or puppet martial artists. You would have to defeat the guardians to obtain the treasures. There were very few treasures that were not guarded by demonic beasts or puppet martial artists. Therefore, most of the time, you would have to rely on your strength. Yi Xing was looking forward to his trip to Qingyan ancient land. He had the strength, and with Zishanho's guidance he knew where the Eye of Azure Cloud was located. This meant that he must have gained something in the Azure Cloud ancient land. Furthermore, if he could obtain the complete Eye of the Blue Cloud, it would be an extreme spiritual martial art. Furthermore, it was an eye technique. It would be a priceless treasure. It would be a huge gain. Yi Xing could not wait to get his hands on the complete Eye of Green Cloud. Therefore, he was looking forward to the opening of the Green Cloud ancient land. The next day, Yi Xing bade farewell to Zishanho and rode Old Black towards Tiansong City. Ever since Yi Xing had entered the Purple Mountain Academy last year, he hadn't returned for about a year. Although Yi Xing didn't have much feelings for this family, it was still where he started in the Star Continent. Yi Xing was a nostalgic person. As his cultivation increased, the distance between him and the Ye family grew further and further. Gradually, they were no longer in the same world. Therefore, while he was still in the Luoxing kingdom, and before he was completely estranged from the Ye family, he came back to visit. Returning to the Ye family wasn't to improve their relationship, but to take a look. As long as the Ye family developed well, he would be able to completely cut off his worldly ties and fulfill his wish. From now on, he would wholeheartedly reach the peak of the martial Tao, and would no longer be affected by the Ye family. In the past year, the Ye family in Tiansong City had developed rapidly, and had become the #1 family in Tiansong City. Whether it was the Xiong family or the Wei family, they were all suppressed by the Ye family. The main reason for the rapid development of the Ye family was because Yi Xing had become a disciple of the Luoxing sect, and the Ye family had received a large amount of rewards. The rewards that the Ye family had received were all given out by Zishanho on behalf of the Luoxing sect. For a small family like the Ye family, even a little trash from the Luoxing sect was a priceless treasure to the Ye family. Elixirs that could raise cultivation, superior-grade martial arts manuals, superior-grade weapons. This caused the Ye family's foundation to instantly become rich. And at the same time, it also caused the cultivation of the Ye family's martial artists to break through continuously. Now there were already a few level 8 martial artists and dozens of level 7 martial artists. Although this kind of strength was nothing in Zishan County City, it was an absolute overlord in Tiansong City. This was especially so for the Ye family in Qingye Town. As Yi Xing's true hometown, they had received the greatest benefits. Yi Xing's parents and third uncle had all broken through to level 7 martial artists because of the elixirs, and were promoted to the main family of Tiansong City, becoming powerful elders. In Tiansong City, Yi Xing met his parents, third uncle Yi Feng, and the rest of the Ye family. Seeing that the Ye family's development was going well, Yi Xing was very satisfied and happy. Compared to the past, the Ye family had undergone a complete change. Everyone was full of joy and happiness. This caused Yi Xing to completely let go of the last bit of worry he had for the Ye family. His heart was completely calm, and he no longer had any other thoughts. A soft sound rang out. Following that, a strong aura exploded from Yi Xing's body. That aura instantly swept out in all directions. Everyone in the Ye family trembled under this aura. This was the aura of a martial saint leaking out. To ordinary martial artists, as long as a martial saint willed it, this aura would be enough to kill them. Yi Xing's heart was filled with joy. It seemed that Master Lin Fenghua was right. Strength could not last long and softness could not be defended. Combining strength and softness was the way of the king. His cultivation had reached the peak of the 5th-star martial saint realm. He had continuously tried to break through to the 6th-star martial saint realm for more than half a month, but in the end, there was no effect at all. Now he listened to Lin Fenghua's advice and relaxed his mind. First he went to Zishan County to see Zishanho. Then he went to Tiansong City to see the Ye family. Yi Xing's heart was calm, and he no longer had any worries. His state of mind was completely pure. The cultivation barrier of the 6th-star vortex realm naturally disappeared. Yixing's cultivation naturally broke through, and he became a 6-star martial saint. His wish to break through to the 6th-star martial saint realm, before the Qingyan ancient land opened, had finally been fulfilled. Yixing thought, when I was a 5th-star martial saint, Master said that it would be difficult for me to draw the purple cloud bow. Now that my cultivation has broken through and my physical body is much stronger than other martial saints, the purple cloud bow should not be difficult for me to draw. After saying that, Yixing walked out of the room and went to the Ye family's square. He stretched out his hand and the purple cloud bow and purple gold arrow appeared in his hands. Yixing released his senses and looked into the distance. He wanted to test how far this top middle grade spiritual bow could shoot and how powerful it was. Yixing released his senses and immediately felt a sense of danger. The higher one's cultivation, the stronger one's senses. In Tiansong City, he actually felt a sense of danger, which made him surprised. Whoosh! At this moment, a few miles away, on a small hill outside the Yi family's residence, a sharp arrow suddenly shot out. The arrow broke through the air and turned into a ray of light, shooting directly toward Yixing. An archer had launched a sneak attack, an assassination. The quality of the archer's spirit bow was not low, and his cultivation was not bad either. The power of the arrows shot out pierced through the air. From afar, Yixing could feel a sharp qi, which was very terrifying. This arrow could easily kill a 7-star martial saint. In fact, it could even kill an 8-star martial saint. Yixing turned his head and looked into the distance. He looked into the distance and scanned with his super brain. The moment Yixing turned his head, the arrow had already pierced through the air and shot to his side. Yixing moved his feet and his body suddenly moved. Heavenly bat steps. The wind force of the minute realm was integrated. Yixingtian seemed to take a casual step, but in fact, he was extremely clever. His figure flashed and he dodged the arrow's attack. Boom! The arrow shot past Yixing and instantly hit the wall of the square 100 meters away. It directly blasted a 10-meter-long hole in the wall. This showed the power of this arrow. If it had hit Yixing, the terrifying power would have been enough to instantly shatter all the meridians in his body and kill him instantly. Yixing turned his head and looked into the distance. His superbrain scanned and locked onto a figure a few miles away. The archer hiding in the forest of the mountain city was an 8-star martial saint. The other party's hiding was nothing to Yixing. Whoosh! At this moment, another arrow shot out from the forest. Yixing's lips curled up. He drew his bow and shot the arrow in one go. The purple gold arrow left the bowstring. A dragon's roar sounded and turned into a green dragon. Bang! The two arrows clashed in the air and collided with each other, producing an explosive sound. The other party's arrow exploded, but the purple gold arrow did not lose its momentum. It still streaked across the void like a ray of light. A few miles away, in the forest of the mountain city, the 8-star martial saint archer's expression instantly turned into horror. The 7th day of the 4th night watch. There are only 3 days left. Brothers, don't waste your monthly votes. Please vote for the archer god. Chapter 283. According to the information obtained by the assassin, Yixing was a 5-star martial saint, and his battle prowess was at the peak of the 7-star martial saint realm. As an 8-star martial saint, he could defeat Yixing in a head-on battle, not to mention shooting arrows from afar. Even if his target was also an 8-star martial saint, he could easily kill him. However, the arrow he shot failed to hurt Yixing at all. Yixing dodged it in an instant. Moreover, Yixing's archery skills were even more terrifying than his. When the arrow shot over, it shattered his arrow in an instant, and then continued to shoot towards him without slowing down. Feeling the terrifying attack from the arrow, the 8-star martial saint assassin knew that he could not resist this arrow. At this critical moment, the 8-star martial saint assassin's celestial essence erupted to the limit, and his movement technique was pushed to the limit. With a loud shout, his whole body shot to the side like a meteor. Whoosh! The arrow almost brushed past the edge of his body, and the sharp aura of the arrow scraped his body, causing him to feel a faint pain. However, the 8-star martial saint assassin's heart was full of joy. He had dodged this terrible arrow. However, had he really dodged it? Yi Xing's mind moved, and the arrow that was shooting forward changed direction in an instant, continuing to shoot towards the 8-star Martial Saint Assassin. Just as the 8-star Martial Saint Assassin's heart was filled with joy, the arrow tore through his protective celestial essence, shot through his back, and came out from his chest. The powerful force of the arrow carried the 8-star Martial Saint's body forward, and in the blink of an eye, he hit a big tree. Nail. The arrow was nailed deeply into the trunk. The 8-star Martial Saint Assassin was directly nailed to the trunk, and his feet could not touch the ground. His body twitched, and blood overflowed from his mouth. He slowly spat out 4 words. "This is impossible." Then his head tilted, and his breath stopped and he died. He could not believe that Yi Xing, who was only an intermediate martial saint, had already stepped into the second realm of archery, reaching the point where he could do as he pleased. Yi Xing jumped up and spread out his celestial essence. Just like a bat spreading its wings, he glided through the air for a few miles before arriving at the hillside woods outside the Yi Mansion. Everyone from the Yi Mansion watched as Yi Xing soared into the sky, each and every one of them looking stunned. For ordinary martial artists like them, Yi Xing had a pair of celestial essence wings on his back. Moreover, he could glide through the air for several miles. This was no different from flying. If it were other martial sages, they definitely wouldn't be able to glide across a distance of several kilometers with the help of celestial essence wings like Yi Xing. This was not only because Yi Xing's heavenly bat steps had reached the grand completion stage, but also because his wind force had reached the minute subtlety realm. Unless it was a martial saint who had also comprehended the wind force. Even if it was a 9-star martial saint who had mastered the middle spirit martial light body technique, it would be impossible for him to glide a few miles like Yi Xing. It was already not bad to be able to glide for more than a mile. Yi Xing came to the corpse of the 8-star martial saint assassin and pulled out the purple gold arrow. He searched the corpse but couldn't find any useful information. Yi Xing waved his hand and the star fire seed ignited a ball of flame, which fell on the corpse and quickly burned it to ashes. Although he couldn't find any useful information, Yi Xing could guess who the murderer behind the scenes was. And there were not many people who wanted to kill him. "You sent an 8-star martial saint to kill me. You underestimate me, Yi Xing. When I have enough strength, I will settle the score with you." Yi Xing muttered to himself, a sharp light shooting out from his eyes. Yi Xing picked up the bow dropped by the assassin, as well as a few arrows made of spirit metal. These were the only things that Yi Xing got from killing this person. The bow was a good one. Although it couldn't be compared to the purple cloud bow, it was still a middle spirit bow. As long as he could draw this bow, he would have the power to kill a 6-star martial saint. Mid-grade spiritual bows were rare. Yi Xing didn't know if there were any more mid-grade spiritual bows after Zi Shanho gave him the purple firmament bow. On the same day, he returned to Zi Shanho's residence from Celestial Azure City to deliver the mid-grade spiritual bow he had obtained to his master, Zi Shanho. He also reported the ambush. Zi Shanho took the middle spirit bow and said, "Yi Xing, there are people who don't want you to grow. It is very dangerous for you to be outside the sect. You killed an 8-star martial saint assassin, so they might send a 9-star martial saint assassin. You killed a 9-star martial saint assassin, so next time, a true human rank expert might come to deal with you. Only in the Falling Star sect will the assassin not have the chance to deal with you. Only then will you be safe." Yi Xing nodded and said, "Then I will return to the sect now." Zi Shanho said, "I will send you back. This time, in the Azure Cloud Ancient Land, if you can obtain some good fortune and increase your strength, when you come out of the Azure Cloud Ancient Land, as long as you have the strength to protect yourself in front of a true human rank expert, she won't be able to do anything to you anymore. She can only watch you grow." With Zi Shanho's escort, Yi Xing returned to the Falling Star sect safely. There were 3 more days until the Azure Cloud Ancient Land opened. After Yi Xing returned to the sect, he paid a visit to his master, Lin Fenghua, and then went into seclusion to cultivate the middle spirit falling star art. Now he was confident that he could cultivate the middle spirit falling star art to the 7th layer. Once he cultivated the middle spirit falling star art to the peak, Yixing's celestial essence would greatly increase, and his strength would also increase. The higher the attainment of the cultivation technique inheritance, the stronger the celestial essence, and the faster the cultivation speed. Yixing's superbrain couldn't change the specific cultivation speed of Yixing, and it couldn't use the virtual model to cultivate the cultivation technique inheritance. However, the superbrain could analyze the cultivation technique inheritance thoroughly and form a model in his mind, showing the best cultivation method accurately without any mistakes. Yixing cultivated according to the model in his mind without any mistakes. In this aspect, his cultivation of the cultivation technique inheritance was better than anyone else. For other cultivators, no matter how powerful their master was, even if they were kings, they couldn't do it without any mistakes. After all, the master was the master, and the disciple was two different people. It was impossible for the disciple to learn everything the master taught. However, Yixing cultivated according to the model in his mind, and he could learn it 100%. This was because if there was any mistake, the superbrain would adjust, and in the end, the cultivation of the body and the model in the mind would be exactly the same. Once the model was exactly the same, it meant that Yixing's cultivation was 100% correct. With 100% correct cultivation, Yixing's attainment in the cultivation technique inheritance was naturally as easy as flipping his hand. When the Qingyan ancient land opened, Yixing had already cultivated the middle grade falling star incantation to the 7th level. The 7th level of the middle grade falling star incantation could be transformed into the upper grade falling star incantation. However, the upper grade falling star incantation cultivated astral essence, and Yixing was only a 6-star martial sage. Naturally, he couldn't transform it. This would have to wait until Yixing's cultivation reached the 9th level of the star vortex realm. Then the transformation would begin. Once the transformation happened, the celestial essence in Yixing's body would transform into astral essence, and he would surpass the peak of the 9th level and become a half-step perfected one. Early in the morning, the 10 core disciples of the Falling Star sect gathered in the main hall of the Falling Star sect. Every time the Qingyan ancient land opened, there was a limit to the number of disciples that could enter the Qingyan ancient land. The 6 sects in the south each had 10 disciples, and the 4 sects in the north each had 20 disciples. There were a total of 140 disciples. The 10 core disciples of the Falling Star sect had not changed, except for the addition of He Hongjiao and the addition of Yixing. The sect master Lu Tianyuan, the enforcement elder Yu Pinghai, the war pavilion elder Qi Dosheng, and the sect affairs elder Lin Fengjue led the 4 perfected one to the depths of the Qingyan mountain range on the purple flame monarch eagle. The purple flame monarch eagle was a level 3 demonic beast, and its strength was comparable to a 3-star perfected one. It was an eagle that Lin Shuyuan obtained when he was young and raised. More than 100 years ago, Lin Shuyuan rode on the purple flame monarch eagle and escaped from the Falling Star country. The purple flame monarch eagle was extremely fast and could travel 100,000 miles in a day. The Falling Star sect was tens of thousands of miles away from the Qingyan ancient land, but it would only take half a day to reach the Qingyan ancient land. In the depths of the Qingyan mountain range, not only were there level 2 demonic beasts everywhere, but there were also many level 3 demonic beasts. But with the terrifying aura of the purple flame monarch eagle and the 4 perfected one, the level 3 demonic beasts in the depths of the Qingyan mountain range all retreated. The deeper they went into the Qingyan mountain range, Yixing gradually saw deep ravines. The shorter ones were a few hundred meters long, and the longer ones were a few thousand meters long. There were even huge palm prints on the ground that were dozens of meters deep, forming a huge palm-shaped basin. It was obvious that they had reached the legendary place where the 2 kings fought. The scene was shocking. The monthly votes list was going to explode. Poor thing, they were rolling on the ground begging for monthly votes. Today's 4th update. Chapter 284. This was the first time the core disciples had been here. When they saw the scene, they sucked in a breath of cold air. What is going on? That valley, and that valley, why do they all look like palms? Not all the core disciples had heard of the legend of a battle between kings. Gong Yunxiu, who was ranked 7th, pointed at the palm-shaped valleys and exclaimed in shock. Those palm-shaped valleys looked like they were created by someone's palm. However, these palm-shaped valleys were at least 1,000 meters long and wide. Who could create such a huge valley? This was simply unimaginable. Junior sister Gong, legend has it that there were 2 kings who fought here. These marks on the ground are said to be the marks of a battle between the 2 kings. Ma Ren explained to Gong Xiuyun. A battle between kings? Gong Xiuyun sucked in a breath of cold air, but the doubt in her eyes had disappeared. Such a miracle could only be explained by a battle between kings. No wonder there was such a legend. Not long after, the purple flame monarch eagle carried the group to a huge flat ground. There were already people from a few sects here. The people from the Spirit Moon sect had already arrived. Lu Tianyuan let the purple flame monarch eagle land beside the Luan and greeted Sage Xingyu of the Spirit Moon sect. Sage Xingyu. Sage Tianyuan. Lu Tianyuan and Lung Xingyu nodded at each other. In the Qingyun region, Sage Xingyu was the strongest among the martial artists. Adding the name of Sage Xingyu was a form of respect for Sage Xingyu. If one did not respect the other party, there was no need to call him Sage Xingyu. Just like Lu Tianyuan and Yun Zhangkong, both of them called each other by their names. Lu Tianyuan looked at the light screen at the end of the flat ground and said emotionally, "It's time for the Qingyun ancient land to open again. I wonder what kind of treasure will appear this time." Lung Xingyu smiled and said, "Your sect's genius disciple, Yixing, has made a breakthrough in his cultivation. With his combat strength, he should not be afraid of an 8-star martial sage now. He is another demonic child. It seems like your sect has gained a lot in the Qingyun ancient land this time." Although Yixing did not purposely reveal his cultivation level, Shenren's eyesight was extremely sharp. Naturally, he could see through his cultivation level. However, if Yixing also stepped into the astral realm and converted all his celestial essence into astral qi, then the astral qi would be locked in place. Unless he took the initiative to reveal his cultivation, it would be very difficult for anyone to see through his cultivation, unless it was a powerhouse above the venerable realm. Lu Tianyuan naturally knew that Yixing had already become a 6-star martial saint. However, he did not know exactly how strong Yixing was, as Yixing had never revealed it before. When Yixing was a 5-star martial sage, he was able to cross 2 realms to fight. His current strength should not be inferior to an 8-star martial sage. Lu Tianyuan chuckled. There were many treasures in the Azure Cloud ancient land, but every year, the disciples of the 4 sects in the north would obtain most of the treasures. The 6 great childs were the most powerful among the younger disciples of the 10 sections. If Yixing also reached this level, it meant that Yixing could also participate in the most important treasure fight. Naturally, the benefits he would obtain would be better than in the past. Lu Tianyuan said with a radiant face, "Hee. I hope so, I hope so." Lung Xingyu said, "The Azure Cloud ancient land is full of dangers. Young hero Yi, please take care of my sect's disciples." As she spoke, Lung Xingyu raised her voice and glanced at Yixing. Although the Spiritual Moon sect and the Flying Cloud sect were in an alliance and belonged to the same camp, in the Azure Cloud ancient land, it was not uncommon for disciples of the same sect to fall out over treasures, let alone disciples of different sections. 15 years ago, Hua Tianshu killed Zilan of the Spiritual Moon sect and chopped off Hua Tianfeng's legs in order to snatch the opportunity of an ascendant sage. Moreover, Hua Tianfeng was not only a disciple of the same sect, but also a sworn brother and sister. Lu Tianyuan patted Yixing's shoulder and said to Lung Xingyu, "He will." At noon, the seal of the Azure Cloud ancient land would be opened, and there was not much time left. Not long after the Falling Star sect arrived, other sects arrived one after another. When the martial artists of the Dongfu sect arrived, regardless of whether they were martial sages or martial sages, they all looked at the Falling Star sect with hatred in their eyes. Yixing in particular felt that many eyes were fixed on him. One of them was so strong that it was like a sharp knife moving around Yixing's body. Yixing followed the gaze and saw that it belonged to a young man in his early 20s. He was wearing a black robe, and his cultivation was at LV 7-star vortex realm. Yixing immediately activated his superbrain and scanned him. There was a yellow flame of destiny in the young man's mind, and there were 3 flames in total. A 7-star martial sage with a 3-star yellow fate. Yixing immediately knew the young man's identity. He was the #1 disciple of the Dongfu sect, Watanabe Xian. Watanabe Xian was the #1 genius in the history of the Dongfu sect. Not only was he talented in cultivation, but he was also very talented in martial arts. He had the combat strength to challenge those of a higher level. He was the only one among the disciples of the 6 southern sects who could be compared with the most outstanding disciples of the 4 northern sections. He was one of the 6 most powerful young masters among the disciples of the 10 sects. His title was Young Master Watanabe. Seeing Yixing looking at him, young Master Watanabe's lips moved. Although he did not say anything, Yixing could tell what he was trying to say. Trash. I'll tear you to pieces in the azure cloud ancient land. A faint smile appeared at the corner of Yixing's mouth. He didn't say anything but mouthed, I'll wait for you. Whoosh. Sir Watanabe's aura suddenly rose and became incomparably sharp. He wanted to see fear in Yixing's eyes, but he was disappointed. Yixing didn't have the slightest bit of fear, and his words showed that he didn't put Sir Watanabe in his eyes. Young Master Watanabe continued to move his lips. Trash. You'll die miserably. Yixing narrowed his eyes and didn't respond. His lips curled up slightly. He had said what he wanted to say, and he wouldn't say it a second time as long as Mr. Watanabe came. Not long after the Dongfu sect martial artists arrived, the Flying Cloud sect martial artists also arrived. They stood on the other side of the Spirit Moon sect, separated from the Falling Star sect. After Yun Zhongkong arrived, he only greeted the Spirit Moon sect master, and ignored the Falling Star sect. The Falling Star sect was the winner of the 3-sect competition, and Yixing was the leader of the 3 sects in the Azure Cloud ancient land. Out of courtesy, the Flying Cloud sect should take the initiative to greet the Falling Star sect. Lu Tianyuan snorted. Yun Zhongkong did not put the Falling Star sect in his eyes, and he would not take the initiative to greet them. Anyway, Lu Tianyuan had already decided that after the Azure Cloud ancient land, the Falling Star sect and the Flying Cloud sect would go their separate ways. On the vast flat ground, the 6 major sects of the south were clearly divided into 2 camps. The martial artists of the Spirit Moon sect and the Flying Cloud sect stood on one side. The martial artists of the Dongfu sect, the Divine Wind sect and the Blood Ghost sect stood on the other side. The martial artists of the 2 camps looked at each other with unfriendly eyes. As for the martial artists of the 4 major sects of the north, they had not arrived yet. When noon was about to arrive, the martial artists of the 4 major sects of the north arrived at the same time. The martial artists of the 4 major sects came from different directions. Obviously, it was not a deliberate agreement. It was because the later they came, the more important they were. No one was willing to be the first to arrive and stand together with the martial artists of the 6 major sects of the south while waiting for the other sections. Of course, there was a limit to it. If they did not show up when the Azure Cloud ancient land was about to open, they would be laughed at by others for not having a sense of time. Therefore, when the Azure Cloud ancient land was about to open, they showed up at the same time. When the martial artists of the 4 major sects showed up, there were 4 monstrous auras that pressed down on them. Like the 6 major sects of the south, each sect had 4 perfected persons who were escorting their disciples. However, in terms of cultivation, the perfected persons of the 4 major sects of the north were much higher. Among the perfected persons of the 4 major sects, the one with the highest cultivation was a 5-star perfected persons. The other 3 were all 3-star perfected persons. 1 was a 4-star perfected persons and 2 were 3-star perfected persons. All the perfected persons of the 6 major sects of the south were beginner perfected persons, and there were only a few 3-star perfected persons. The perfected persons of the 6 major sects of the north were 3-star perfected persons, and almost half of them were intermediate perfected persons. The difference in strength between the north and south of the Azure Cloud Mountain was obvious. Second update. The archer god was shot in the butt twice. He was crying for votes. Do you want to know more about the archer god supreme? Open WeChat now and click on the plus sign on the top right corner. Add a public account to your friends and search for Kitty Ann's Hongwen Wang. Follow the public account, and you will never miss a new update. Chapter 285. The ranking of a sect was based on the cultivation level of the martial artist. A sect without a sage or above could only be considered a small sect, and could not be rated as a star sect. A sect with a sage was called a 1-star sect. A sect with a supremacy was called a 2-star sect. A sect with a king was called a 3-star sect. The main difference between a star-ranked sect and a starless sect was that a star-ranked sect could establish a country, but a starless sect could not. A country established by a 1-star sect was an ordinary country. A country established by a 2-star sect was called an empire. A country established by a 3-star sect was called a dynasty. Among them, whether it was an ordinary country, an empire, or a dynasty, it was divided into low grade, middle grade, and upper grade based on the strength of the sect that controlled it. For example, a 1-star sect with a beginner sage was a low-grade 1-star sect. A mid-grade sage was a middle-grade 1-star sect, and a high-level sage was a upper-grade 1-star sect. Although they were all 1-star sects, their strength was divided into 3 grades. The corresponding countries were naturally divided into low-grade, middle-grade, and upper-grade. 2-star sects, 3-star sects, and so on were the same. In the true mystic region, there were only 1-star sections. Among them, the strongest were the 9 great nations, which were all upper-grade nations controlled by 9 upper-grade 1-star sections. In the Azure Cloud region, there were only low-grade and middle-grade nations, which were controlled by low-grade and middle-grade 1-star sects respectively. The 6 southern sects were low-grade 1-star sections. The 4 northern sects were middle-grade 1-star sections. From the 6 southern sects and the 4 northern sects, it could be seen that there was a huge difference in strength between sects of the same star rank and different grades. One could imagine the difference in strength between sects of different star ranks. One was in the sky while the other was in the ground. In the martial artist world, the hierarchy was strict. The strong were superior. The martial artists of the 4 northern sects looked at the martial artists of the 6 southern sects, as if they were city dwellers looking at country bumpkins. Their eyes were filled with arrogance. Although they were all in the Azure Cloud region, and were separated by the Azure Cloud mountain range, the 4 northern sects and the 4 southern sects still had many interactions. This was because the 4 northern sects were not united. As such, the 6 southern sects were faced with a problem. Which side should they form a good relationship with? The 4 sects in the north were the Blue Thunder sect, the Sun Moon sect, the Tian Luo sect, and the Xianming sect. Among them, the Blue Thunder sect and the Sun Moon sect were rising stars, and had only been established for about 1,000 years. The Tian Luo sect and the Xianming sect had a long history, and had witnessed the glory of the Blue Cloud sect. After the destruction of the Blue Cloud sect, the Tian Luo sect and the Xianming sect had a long period of glory. However, there was no sect that could last forever. In the past 1,000 years, the Blue Thunder sect and the Sun Moon sect had gradually risen to be on par with the Tian Luo sect and the Xianming sect. Now the Blue Thunder sect and the Sun Moon sect had surpassed the Tian Luo sect and the Xianming sect in one fell swoop. Each sect had a 6-star sage in charge. They were the 2 overlords of the Green Cloud region. The Tian Luo sect and the Xianming sect no longer had a 6-star sage, so they were 1 level weaker. 2 tigers cannot live on one mountain. With 2 overlords in the same region, it was inevitable that conflicts would arise. 1,000 years ago, the powerful Tian Luo sect and the Xianming sect were locked in a fierce battle. Now the Green Thunder sect and the Sun Moon sect were also in a fierce battle. They looked for allies to suppress each other. The Blue Thunder sect looked for the Tian Luo sect, and the Sun Moon sect looked for the Xianming sect. Thus 2 camps were formed. The 6 southern sects and the 4 northern sects interacted. It was impossible to please both sides, so they could only choose one side. After many years of development, the Spirit Moon sect, the Flying Cloud sect, and the Blue Thunder sect and the Tian Luo sect of the north stood on the same side. The East Fu sect, the Wind sect, and the Blood Ghost sect stood on the same side as the Sun Moon sect and the Xianming sect. Although they stood on the same side, the 6 southern sects and the 4 northern sects were not on the same level. There was limited communication and friendship between them. However, because the East Fu sect had a young master Watanabe, who was the #1 genius in the history of the East Fu sect. The Sun-Moon sect and the East Fu sect had become closer in recent years. Young Master Watanabe, the Yin-Yang Master, and the Great Sun Master had also become close friends. Lei sect leader. Luo sect leader. The 3 sect leaders of the Spirit Moon sect and the Flying Cloud sect walked forward and greeted Lei Zhen and Luo Zhan, respectively. Yang sect leader. Xian Ming sect leader. The East Fu sect leader, Watanabe Xiong, did not come. It was the Supreme Elder, Watanabe Tan, who led the group. At the same time, he and the 2 sect leaders of the Wind sect and the Blood Ghost sect also walked forward and greeted Yin Wudao and Ming Li, respectively. There was a clear line between the 2 sides. The sect leaders of the 4 northern sects nodded indifferently. Only the Sun-Moon sect leader, Yin Wudao, smiled slightly at the Supreme Elder of the East Fu sect, indicating the importance he attached to the East Fu sect. After greeting each other, there was no superfluous conversation. The disciples of the 4 northern sects only glanced at the disciples of the 6 southern sects and then looked away, their faces full of arrogance. Brother Yonggan, Brother Yongming. Among the disciples of the 6 southern sects, the only one who greeted the disciples of the 4 northern sects was young Master Watanabe of the East Fu sect. The Yin-Yang young Master, Yongming, was 1 year younger than young Master Watanabe. However, young Master Watanabe was naturally a little brother in front of him. The Yin-Yang young Master and the Great Sun young Master smiled at young Master Watanabe with a friendly expression. It was completely different from how they treated the other disciples of the 6 southern sects. At this moment, there was a strong fluctuation of qi at the end of the plane. The 4 northern sects had arrived very late, and there was not much time for them to exchange greetings. It was noon and the seal of the Azure Cloud Ancient Land was opened. Everyone who was talking stopped talking and looked towards the Azure Cloud Ancient Land. Gaps started to appear on the light screen of the array. It no longer sealed the Azure Cloud Ancient Land tightly. Instead, many entrances to the Azure Cloud Ancient Land appeared. The juniors had only heard of the Azure Cloud Ancient Land, but had never entered it. They had heard that there were countless treasures inside, and their eyes were filled with excitement. Lu Tianyuan said to the disciples of the passageway won't be open for long. Yi Xing, quickly enter. There are 30 days until the next time the passageway opens. After 30 days, you must reach the entrance and exit. Yi Xing nodded and then waved his hand saying, "Those who are with me follow me." The disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spiritual Moon sect followed closely behind. The disciples of the Flying Cloud sect looked at Yin Zhangkong. Yin Zhangkong waved his hand and the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect followed behind. The 3 sects each had 10 people and there was a total of 30 people. Yi Xing took the lead and walked towards one of the entrances. In addition, the disciples of the 4 northern sects were led to the 4 entrances by the head disciples of each sect. The disciples of the Dongfu sect, Ilas sect and Shueyo sect were led by young Master Watanabe and walked towards one of the entrances of the Azure Cloud Ancient Land. The Azure Cloud Ancient Land was vast, and there were many entrances after the seal was opened. Different entrances led to different places in the Azure Cloud Ancient Land. As there were many conflicts between the sects and there were even deep hatred between them, in order to prevent the disciples from entering the Azure Cloud Ancient Land, there was an agreement that different teams had to enter through different entrances. The entrance that young Master Watanabe had chosen was not the one that Yi Xing had chosen. However, it was close to the entrance that Yi Xing had chosen. The entrance that they had chosen was close to the Azure Cloud Ancient Land, and it would not be too far away. The 2 camps of the 6 southern sects were further away from each other. Yi Xing had entered the Azure Cloud Ancient Land near the Azure Cloud Ancient Land while young Master Watanabe had brought his team to the Azure Cloud Ancient Land on purpose. When Lu Tianyuan saw this, he frowned slightly. However, he soon relaxed as he had confidence in Yi Xing. The Supreme Elder of the Dongfu sect, Du Biantan, curled his lips and revealed a sinister chill in his eyes. In the Azure Cloud Ancient Land, Yi Xing and the rest had entered the Azure Cloud Ancient Land at the foot of a mountain. Yi Xing immediately climbed to the peak of the mountain beside him and looked into the distance. He did not see any other teams. Yi Xing looked at the crowd and said, "Remember this place. We will be back here in a month's time. During this month, you can group up and move freely to look for opportunities. We will meet here in a month's time. A disciple of the Flying Cloud sect said, Senior Yixing, now that we've just entered the Qingyan ancient land, we're not too far away from the other teams. If we split up, we might bump into them. If we're in danger, we'd better stick with Senior Brother Yixing. Only Senior Brother Yixing can protect us. Open WeChat now and click on the plus sign on the top right corner. Add a public account in the Add Friends section, and search for Kitty-Ann's Hongwen Wang. Follow the public account, and you will never miss any new updates. Chapter 286. Yixing looked at the person who spoke, and was surprised to see that it was a disciple of the Flying Cloud sect. Whether it was a disciple of the Falling Star sect or the Spirit Moon sect, Yixing felt that it was normal. However, Yixing found it strange that a disciple of the Flying Cloud sect said it. The attitude of the Flying Cloud sect towards the Falling Star sect and towards him, Yixing, was deeply engraved in Yixing's mind. This Flying Cloud sect disciple was acting a little too familiar with him. However, what this person said was not unreasonable. If they separated here, it was indeed possible to meet other teams. If they met a normal team, it would be fine. However, if they met a ruthless person in the Qingyan ancient land, killing and robbing was not a rare thing. Yixing looked at the disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spirit Moon sect and asked, What do you think? Do you want to find your own opportunities or stay with me and go deeper into the Qingyan ancient land before separating? With 30 people together, it was obviously the least efficient to search for opportunities. Moreover, even if they found an opportunity, it was not enough for 30 people to share. Therefore, some of the disciples who were confident in their own strength or luck were unwilling to squeeze with the others. However, there were only a few who were confident. Most of the disciples hoped that being with Yixing would provide them with some form of security. Seeing that most of them were willing to be with him, Yixing nodded and said, Okay, let's go first. We will stay together for the first 3 days. After 3 days, we will go deeper into the Qingyan ancient land, and the chances of meeting other teams will be low. At that time, we will find our own opportunities. In the Qingyan ancient land, there was space power in the formation. The space inside was very vast, and they could not reach the end even if they walked for 10 days. In such a vast space, there were only 140 martial artists. If they were scattered, it would be difficult for them to meet each other. Chaotic spaces were rare, and most of them were in the depths of the Qingyan ancient land. On the first day, Yixing and the others did not encounter any chaotic spaces. Most of the treasures in the Qingyan ancient land were in the chaotic spaces. Since they did not encounter any, they naturally did not gain anything. Of course, it was the others who did not gain anything. Yixing still gained something. He often looked into the distance, and whenever he found a suitable place for spirit herbs to grow, he would scan it with his super brain. After a day, he found a few spirit herbs, and one of them was even a mid-grade spirit herb. Every 5 years, a disciple would enter the Qingyan ancient land. Other than the treasures in the chaotic space, the ordinary area had been plundered time and time again. It was extremely difficult for others to obtain any benefits in the ordinary area. But even in such an environment, Yixing still managed to harvest a few stalks of spirit medicine. Everyone looked at him with strange and surprised gazes. Regarding his ability to find spiritual herbs, many people muttered in their hearts, What a monster! 30 people gathered together, and they were all the most outstanding disciples of the 3 great sections. Their strength was outstanding, and any demonic beasts they encountered along the way would flee far away. As for those demonic beasts that dared to attack, they would all die under the attacks of the 30 people. In the Qingyan ancient land, the sun rose and set, and the sky turned dark. It was synchronized with the outside world. This was not another space but an area enclosed by a formation. It was still a part of the star land, so it was naturally synchronized with the outside world. When night came, the group killed a beast and then spent the night on the mountain peak where the beast lived. This was the beast's habitat, and it was considered the core territory. Other beasts would not invade. Although the 30 of them were together, They did not want to be attacked by any beasts at night. Hence they chose this location. The night was quiet. The next day, the sky turned bright. Everyone woke up and roasted the beast. After filling their stomachs, they were ready to continue their journey. Yixing stood at the peak of the mountain and looked into the distance. He waved to the group and said, "Don't go yet." The disciples were surprised. Emoshilon, the eldest disciple of the Spirit Moon sect, asked, "What happened?" Yixing flew down from the peak and said, "Watanabe Xian is leading the disciples of the Dongfu sect here. They will be here soon." Everyone's expression changed suddenly. Watanabe Xian? Young Master Watanabe, one of the 6 young masters? Although Lung Xingyue said that Yixing was also a young master, in everyone's hearts, the 6 young masters were obviously more terrifying. Lung Xingyue said that Yixing might be comparable to the 6 young masters. After all, the weakest of the 6 young masters was an 8-star martial saint. The strongest among them could defeat anyone. As for Yixing, his cultivation was his weakness. He was only a 6-star martial saint. Although he defeated Yunfeng, who was a 7-star martial saint, when he was a 5-star martial saint, his cultivation had broken through from the 5th to the 6th level. His strength did not necessarily increase from a 7-star martial saint to an 8-star martial saint. Perhaps Yixing's current strength was that of an 8-star martial saint, which was still terrifying and powerful. However, he was not as strong as Watanabe. Moreover, Watanabe's potential was second only to the Yinyang young master among the 6 young masters. This was because other than him and the Yinyang young master, the other 4 young masters were invincible among their peers. However, Watanabe could challenge those of a higher level. He had defeated an 8-star martial saint at the 7th level of the Star Vortex realm, without a single defeat. Hearing Watanabe's name, everyone's heart could not help but tremble. However, there were a few exceptions. A few disciples of the Flying Cloud sect had a half-smile on their faces. They did not seem to be surprised by Watanabe's arrival with the disciples of the Dongfu sect. Yixing's gaze swept across the faces of these Flying Cloud sect disciples. Among them, there was the Flying Cloud sect disciple who had proposed that everyone should be together at the beginning. Moreover, Yunbin and Yunfeng were among them. Yixing squinted his eyes. The disciples of the Flying Cloud sect were not his allies, but his enemies. However, Yixing did not say anything. He was too lazy to expose them. When the disciples of the Dongfu sect arrived, they would naturally show their stance. Soon, the disciples of the Dongfu sect led by Watanabe climbed over a mountain and appeared in everyone's sight. Soon, they arrived at the mountain where Yixing and the others were. Watanabe's face was filled with a sinister smile as he fixed his gaze on Yixing from afar. The other disciples of the Dongfu sect, regardless of their gender, also had sinister smiles on their faces. Their eyes were filled with excitement, as if a killing feast was about to begin. "Run! Run again!" Watanabe stretched out his hand as if he had grabbed something. He squeezed it hard and looked at Yixing with a sinister smile. "No matter how you run, you will not be able to escape from my grasp." Yixing looked coldly at Watanabe. The corner of his mouth curled up slightly. "I said that I will wait for you. When have I ever run?" As he spoke, Yixing waved his hand to the right. "Disciples of the Falling Stars sect, this way. Disciples of the Spiritual Moon sect, this way." Ma Run and Mo Shilon ordered and led the disciples of the 2 sects to the right of Yixing. "Disciples of the Flying Cloud sect, this way." Yunfeng also ordered and led the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect to the right of Yixing. They wanted to be together with the disciples of the Falling Stars sect and the Spiritual Moon sect. However, Yixing waved his hand to the right and said, "Flying Cloud sect, this way." The disciples of the Flying Cloud sect stopped. Yunfeng frowned and thought, "If we don't stick together, how effective can a sneak attack be?" Yunfeng said, "Yixing, why did you put the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect on the other side? Do you want to abandon us? Of course, we have to stay together." As he spoke, Yunfeng waved his hand and led the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect to the right of Yixing. They wanted to stand together with the disciples of the Falling Stars sect and the Spiritual Moon sect. Whoosh, Yixing's figure suddenly moved. The heavenly bat steps of the Great Success stage was integrated with the wind force of the microscopic realm. He performed it to the limit. This speed was not comparable to that of a 9-star martial saint. In the blink of an eye, Yixing flashed in front of Yinfeng. His speed was beyond Yinfeng's expectations. Slap! Yixing slapped out. As soon as Yinfeng saw Yixing's figure, he felt pain on his face. With a loud explosion, his body flew to the side. The head disciple of the Flying Cloud sect, Yinfeng, was sent flying by Yixing's slap. When Yixing was a 5-star martial saint, Yinfeng could still fight with Yixing. Now that Yixing had broken through to the 6-star martial saint, he could not withstand a single blow from Yixing. Chapter 287. At the end of the previous chapter, it should be Yinfeng, not Yinbin. It has been changed. Yinfeng screamed. Broken teeth and blood flew everywhere. He was slapped by Yixing and flew more than 10 meters away. Yixing's palm strength was so strong that the slap was so strong that it almost knocked Yinfeng out. She fell to the ground and felt dizzy. She couldn't tell which direction was which. The disciples of the Flying Cloud sect were stunned. The disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spiritual Moon sect were also stunned. In front of them, the disciples of the Dongfu sect were also stunned. They squinted their eyes and looked horrified. Yixing took back his palm and shouted coldly, "I am the commander of the disciples of the 3 sections. You will be wherever I tell you to be. How dare you disobey my order? Yinfeng, how dare you?" Hearing Yixing's fierce yell, the hearts of the Flying Cloud School disciples trembled as they hurriedly retreated. After Yixing finished speaking, Yinfeng finally woke up from the state where she couldn't tell north from south. Feeling the burning swelling pain, Yinfeng roared angrily right away. "Yixing, you! How dare you hit me? How dare you?" Yinfeng got up from the ground and pointed at Yixing. She gritted her teeth and there was a terrifying look in her eyes. Whoosh! As soon as Yinfeng finished roaring, he saw a figure flash in front of him, and Yixing appeared in front of him again. Yixing's first attack was beyond his expectation. The second attack was also beyond his expectation. So the second slap hit him hard again. Slap! A bloody palm print appeared on the other side of Yinfeng's face, and his body was slapped away again. Yinfeng screamed for the second time. He spat out blood and broken teeth, and fell more than 10 meters away. Yixing shouted, "You know you are wrong and don't change. How dare you be so presumptuous?" This time he was completely dizzy. After he landed, he felt the world was spinning. He wanted to get up, but he fell to the ground again when he was halfway up. The disciples of the Flying Cloud sect all showed a look of horror. Yixing actually had such an attitude. Could it be that Yixing already knew something? Yinbin's figure flashed and appeared beside Yinfeng. He helped Yinfeng up, then waved to the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect, and ran directly to the disciples of the Dongfu sect. They originally wanted to sneak attack Yixing and Sir Watanabe when they were fighting, then cooperate with the disciples of the Dongfu sect to completely destroy the disciples of the Falling Star sect and Spirit Moon sect. However, Yinfeng had been slapped twice in a row, which made them lose all their courage. They didn't dare to stay with Yixing and keep pretending. Seeing the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect running to the disciples of the East supporting sect, the disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spirit Moon sect were furious. They understood why the disciples of the East supporting sect could find them. Why did Yixing suddenly become so strict with the Flying Cloud sect disciples? It turned out that there was a traitor among them. The disciples of the East supporting sect could find them because of the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect. Yixing saw the reason, so he suddenly became strict with the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect. Moreover, why didn't Yinfeng listen to Yixing's order and insisted on gathering with them? After figuring out the identity of the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect, it was clear that they gathered together to sneak attack them and take their lives. Thinking clearly, how could the disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spirit Moon sect not be angry? Despicable! You traitors, you have already colluded with the East supporting sect. The Flying Cloud sect is treacherous, betraying the 3-sect alliance and becoming friends with the enemy. Are you still human? Ma Run and Emo Shilon shouted angrily at the same time. On the opposite side, Sir Watanabe was in a bad mood because the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect exposed their identity so quickly. His face was a little gloomy. However, there was no way to make up for it. It was impossible to let the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect launch a sneak attack. Anyway, Sir Watanabe was confident in killing the disciples of the Falling Star sect, even without the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect. He soon grinned hideously again. Sir Watanabe chuckled and said, "A wise man knows the facts. It's a wise move for the Flying Cloud sect to abandon the darkness and join the light." At this time, Yun Feng had recovered from the dizziness. The swelling pain on both sides of his face made him hate Yixing to the bone. His eyes flashed with the light of devouring. He stared at Yixing fiercely and said angrily, "The East supporting sect has a genius like Sir Watanabe. Sooner or later, it will dominate the southern region of Green Cloud sect, and your Falling Star sect will be destroyed. Our Flying Cloud sect has long disliked your Falling Star sect. We just want to abandon your Falling Star sect and ally with the East supporting sect. What can you do to us?" Next to him, Yunbin also clenched his fist and said, "Yixing, today is the day you die. So what if you're a super genius? A dead genius is no longer a genius. In front of Sir Watanabe, you're just a lowly ant. Today, you'll die without a doubt. All the disciples of the Falling Star sect will be wiped out. No one will be left alive." The faces of the disciples of the Falling Star sect couldn't help but change. The East supporting sect had Sir Watanabe and was already powerful. Now that the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect had betrayed them, they didn't even have the advantage in numbers. Whether it was the disciples of the Falling Star sect or the Spirit Moon sect, they all showed a look of fear. Yixing's expression was as usual. He glanced sharply at the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect and said, "The people I, Yixing, hate the most are traitors. Flying Cloud sect, hee. I'm afraid someone can't save your lives. Who do you think you are? How dare you boast shamelessly in front of senior brother Watanabe? What a disgrace." Among the disciples of the East supporting sect, a woman in tight black clothes walked out and said arrogantly, "Senior brother Watanabe is one of the 6 great young masters. With senior brother Watanabe here, do you think you can hurt the disciples of the Flying Cloud sect?" Tissy. Her tone was full of disdain. She was another 7-star martial saint of the East supporting sect, Dongxianyu, a member of the Dongxian clan. Sir Watanabe laughed and said, "Some people, just because they have the strength to challenge those of a higher level, they think they're peerless geniuses. But in my eyes, they're just ants. Today, with me here, a mere ant dares to talk nonsense. He's simply courting death. I'll let him know how I trample ants to death." As he spoke, Sir Watanabe stared at Yixing and walked forward step by step. With every step, his aura became more violent. The air around him moved without wind and revolved around him, forming a strong aura. The air around him whistled and his clothes and black hair fluttered. Sir Watanabe was like a fierce beast that had awakened, intimidating everyone. Just the violent aura alone made the disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spiritual Moon sect tremble and instinctively retreat. Only Yixing remained calm in the face of Sir Watanabe's aura. Instead of retreating, he moved forward. Boom. As Yixing stepped forward, the air around him also surged. The wind whistled and sand and stones flew. Above him, the sharp aura turned into an illusory long spear and pierced the sky. The rolling essence chi extended straight to the horizon. The aura that Yixing displayed was not inferior to that of Sir Watanabe. With every step Yixing took, his aura also rose steadily. The illusory long spear in the sky became more and more condensed, as if it was going to pierce the sky. Some people just have a little bit of strength to challenge those of a higher level, and think they are peerless geniuses. They are arrogant and conceited, looking down on everyone. But in my eyes, they are just ants," Yixing said as he stepped forward, repeating Sir Watanabe's words word for word. Sir Watanabe's eyes suddenly shot out a sharp light, and his murderous intent soared. He said that Yixing only had a little bit of strength to challenge those of a higher level and regarded Yixing as an ant. He felt that it was natural, as if it was the way things should be. However, it was clear that Yixing had the record of defeating those of a higher level, while he, Sir Watanabe, only had the record of defeating those of a higher level. When Yi Xing returned his words word for word, Sir Watanabe was exposed, as if he had been greatly insulted. It seemed that in his eyes he, Sir Watanabe, was awesome and powerful to be able to challenge those of a higher level, while Yi Xing was just an ant. This logic was simply laughable. Sir Watanabe raised his hand, and a slender sword appeared. It revealed an extremely sharp aura. It was a middle-grade spiritual weapon, and a top one at that. With the spiritual weapon in hand, Sir Watanabe's aura was vigorous and his murderous intent was threatening. Pointing the sword at Yi Xing, Sir Watanabe's expression became even more arrogant. "Ignorant fool, I only need 3 moves to kill you." Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, Sir Watanabe's body turned into a flowing light. A sword light cut through layers of air, and instantly arrived in front of Yi Xing. There will be a 4th night watch tonight, so there are only 4 hours left. Brothers, don't waste your monthly votes. Chapter 288. Fast. Sir Watanabe's sword was extremely fast. The sword light flashed like a meteor, like an arrow piercing through the sky. It was almost unavoidable. Even an 8-star martial saint would not be able to dodge his sword. Fast momentum. Yi Xing's pupil shrank slightly. His opponent's sword contained the fast momentum. Its speed was extremely fast. It was even faster than the sword technique that contained the wind momentum. Although the specialty of grand momentum of wind was its acceleration, merely in terms of acceleration, it was inferior to grand momentum of speed. That was because grand momentum of wind could increase its might and transform it into wind blades to kill enemies, whereas grand momentum of speed purely increased one's speed. Unless one had reached the minor success stage of wind momentum, no matter how fast one was, they would not be able to dodge Sir Watanabe's sword. Coincidentally, Yi Xing's wind momentum was already at the minor success stage of wind momentum. Once one entered the minor success stage, there would be a world of difference compared to the ordinary momentum of heaven and earth. No matter how fast the fast momentum was, it would not be faster than the wind momentum of the minor success stage. Unless, the fast momentum had also reached the minor success stage. Whoosh! Yi Xing used the heavenly bat steps and used the wind momentum. His figure flashed as he stepped out. In the next moment, the sword light pierced through Yi Xing's body. The disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spiritual Moon sect were shocked. The disciples of the Dongfu sect and the Flying Cloud sect were overjoyed. Everyone thought that Yi Xing was pierced through by Sir Watanabe's sword. Even Sir Watanabe's face suddenly revealed a look of joy. However, at this moment, there was no scream and no blood splattering. The joy on Sir Watanabe's face instantly froze. He had pierced through Yi Xing, but there was no real feeling. It was as if he had pierced through air. In the blink of an eye, Yi Xing, who had been pierced by Sir Watanabe, disappeared without a trace. The first sword. An indifferent voice sounded from afar. Everyone then realized that Yi Xing was already a few hundred meters away from Sir Watanabe. In that moment, Yi Xing had actually moved a few hundred meters. Moreover, he was so fast that the martial artists could not even see his shadow. No matter which camp, all the martial artists sucked in a breath of cold air. Sir Watanabe's sword was fast enough that everyone present thought that they could not dodge it. However, Yi Xing's speed was even faster. This was simply shocking. Before this, he had never heard of a junior martial artist who could directly avoid young Master Bian's sword move. Even the strongest of the 6 young masters, the Yin Young Master, could not do so. Sir Watanabe, not because he was faster, but because he was stronger than Sir Watanabe. Hearing Yi Xing's voice, Watanabe was infuriated. He said that he would kill Yi Xing in 3 moves, but Yi Xing was helping him count the moves. The meaning behind his words was obvious. Yi Xing wanted to count to the 3rd move, and see if Watanabe-shin could kill him in 3 moves. If he couldn't kill Watanabe in 3 moves, then he would have to prove that he, Watanabe, was just bluffing. Sir Watanabe's eyes were fixed on Yi Xing. His eyes were about to spit fire as he shouted, "No one has ever dodged my sword. You are the first, but that's all. Let's see how you dodge the 2nd move. Heaven-shattering sword." The last 4 words turned into a shout. As Sir Watanabe's voice rose, the spiritual weapon in his hand emitted a bright light. His figure was like a flowing light. He jumped up and shot towards Yixing. In midair, young Master Watanabe stabbed out with his sword. The void in front of him was broken like a mirror. Countless rays of sword light instantly cut through the void and enveloped Yixing heaven-shattering sword. A sword cut through countless air currents. The void was broken. It looked like the sky was broken. It was appalling. Looking at the dense sword rays, Yixing snorted. Indeed, in front of such a sword technique, Yixing could not dodge even if he used minute subtlety. This was not a simple sword technique. It was a group attack sword technique. This kind of attack was the best at restraining movement. The purple feather spear appeared in Yixing's hand. In an instant, countless dark spear rays formed a spear curtain that defended him from all directions. Dark Spirit Spear Technique, Dark Spear Curtain. Although Yixing could not dodge it, it did not mean that he could not dodge it. In an instant, the dense sword rays and spear rays collided. Ding 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 ding, countless crisp sounds and explosions sounded at the same time. The disciples of the four sects craned their necks to watch the battle between Yixing and Sir Watanabe. Seeing that Yixing was enveloped by the sword rays, the disciples of the Dongfu sect and the Flying Cloud sect were delighted. Dong Xianyue giggled and said, "You're just an ant. All you did was dodge senior brother Watanabe's sword, and you thought you could defy the heavens. Huh. Now you're dead and only a pile of flesh is left." Hearing Dong Xuanyue's laughter, the disciples of the Falling Stars sect and the Spiritual Moon sect frowned, and their hearts thumped. Now all their hopes were placed on Yixing. If Yixing was defeated, they would not have a good ending. The sword rays and spear rays clashed for a few breaths of time, and the crisp sounds were endless. It wasn't until the sky full of sword rays disappeared, and Sir Watanabe withdrew his sword and retreated that the crowd realized that Yixing was still safe and sound. The second sword, Yixing said coldly as he stood with his spear in hand. His aura was shocking. Although there were countless sword rays, it was only one move. Therefore, it could only be counted as one sword. Seeing that Yixing was still safe and sound, the disciples of the Falling Stars sect and the Spiritual Moon sect were overjoyed. They finally heaved a sigh of relief. On the other hand, the disciples of the Dongfu sect and the Flying Cloud sect were shocked. Yixing had actually blocked Sir Watanabe's move. This was a terrifying attack that could kill an 8-star martial sage. In particular, Dong Xuanyue's expression was very interesting. She had just said that Yixing would be chopped into pieces by Sir Watanabe's move, but reality had slapped her in the face. Dong Xianyue was furious and shouted, "There's still the third sword. The third sword, he will definitely die. He must die." Sir Watanabe's expression was as ugly as Dong Xuanyue's. Yixing's strength was much stronger than he had imagined. Even the sky-shattering sword could not hurt Yixing at all. It would be very difficult to kill Yixing with the third sword. However, if the third sword could not kill Yixing, then reality would give Sir Watanabe a big slap in the face. Whoosh! A terrifying aura rose from Sir Watanabe's body. An array of starlight rushed out from between his eyebrows. In order to kill Yixing with the third sword, Sir Watanabe used his astrology to launch a powerful attack. The starlight rushed to the sky above Sir Watanabe and turned into a huge star. It looked like a barren planet. However, it was definitely not ordinary. The entire planet was filled with a terrifying murderous intent. Dong Xianyue looked at Sir Watanabe's astrology, and her eyes flashed with excitement. Good. Senior brother Watanabe has used the Tua Luo astrology, which is an ominous star in the superior astrology. It has a surging killing power. Senior brother Watanabe's attack with the Tua Luo astrology is invincible among 8-star martial sages. Let's see how that ant can survive. He's dead, he's dead. Superior astrology, Tua Luo star. Stars had various attributes. However, some special stars had no attributes but had a powerful killing intent. They were ominous stars. Ominous stars not only contained powerful and brutal power, but also could affect the mind of warriors. They belonged to the category of demonic stars in troubled times. However, as a superior astrology, Tua Luo star was not qualified to be called a demonic star in troubled times. Only the ominous stars in the superior astrology were qualified to be called demonic stars in troubled times. Most of the kings had superior astrology. In other words, those who had superior astrology would most likely become kings. Ominous stars were undoubtedly among the strongest stars of the same level. A king with an extremely ominous star was enough to cause chaos in the world. Thus, they were crowned with the title of Chaotic Era Demon Star. Sir Watanabe could probably cause chaos in the Qingyan region. Perhaps he could even cause chaos in the true Xian region. However, he was far from being able to cause chaos. The real demonic star in troubled times was not Sir Watanabe, but Yi Xing. Tuoluo star was a superior ominous star after all. Sir Watanabe was also very powerful. Yi Xing did not dare to underestimate him. His expression turned serious. However, Yi Xing still did not use his astrology. Instead, he activated his superbrain scanning mode. After becoming a 6-star martial sage, Yi Xing's overall strength had increased. Furthermore, he felt that his dark spirit spear art and sky bat movement art, which had been stuck at a bottleneck, had room for improvement. He wanted to push himself to the limit and try not to rely on his astrology. Second update. There are still 3 hours left. It will be a waste if I don't vote. Please look at the ticket warehouse. Please clear the warehouse. Chapter 289. Last hour, monthly ticket sprint. Fourth update in the evening. Please book the guaranteed monthly ticket for April from the brothers. Because according to the strictest division, astrology did not belong to the martial artist's own strength, but belonged to external forces. If one wanted to become a real powerhouse, one should not rely on external forces. Astrology should only be used to save one's life or when there was no other choice, not to rely on it. Only the stronger one was, the more powerful one would be when using astrology. Therefore, one's own strength was the key. Yi Xing looked at young Master Watanabe. The superbrain scanned his every move, including the circulation of the celestial essence in his body. Yi Xing could see everything clearly. Suddenly, the circulation of the celestial essence in young Master Watanabe's body accelerated, and the spiritual weapon treasure sword in his hand instantly burst out a bright brilliance. A surging star force fell from the Tuoluo star, and a murderous aura spread in all directions, making the disciples of the four sects who were watching from afar feel annoyed. At this time, a terrifying aura instantly shrouded Yi Xing, locking on to Yi Xing, heaven-chopping sword. Young Master Watanabe shouted, holding the sword with both hands. His figure flashed, and rushed towards Yi Xing. Whoosh! The spiritual weapon treasure sword chopped down. The bright sword light turned into a giant sword of light, and the airflow in front of it was instantly split in half, looking like the sky was split in half. Middle-grade spiritual weapon, the ultimate move of the heaven-chopping sword art. Heaven-chopping sword. Shrouded by the terrifying aura, Yi Xing had a feeling that no matter how he dodged, he could not dodge it. This was not a matter of speed, but because this heaven-chopping sword had locked onto his aura, no matter where he dodged, the heaven-chopping sword would follow. Unless Yi Xing's speed could reach 1,000 meters in an instant, and move out of the attack range of the heaven-chopping sword in the blink of an eye, he could avoid this sword. Obviously Yi Xing's speed was fast enough, but it was still far from reaching 1,000 meters in an instant. Therefore, in the face of this sword, he could only resist. Yi Xing's body, the celestial essence surged, and the purple feather spear suddenly shone brightly, bursting out a huge dark spear shadow, facing the opponent's ultimate sword, and thrusting the spear. Dark spear art, dark spirit spear. This spear was also an ultimate killing move. They were both middle-stage spiritual martial force, both had great completion stage, and both had ultimate killing moves. Now who was stronger and who was weaker? The answer was obvious. Sir Watanabe's sword was much more powerful than the previous one. In terms of star essence intensity, Yi Xing wasn't inferior to young Master Watanabe. However, young Master Watanabe's spear contained the power of the celestial image. The gyroscope celestial image not only poured down a strong star force, but also an endless murderous aura, which made the power of this sword extremely powerful. Even though Yi Xing's dark spirit spear was a dark martial art, And even though Yi Xing's spear contained the power of darkness and wind, it still couldn't make up for the difference in strength. Yi Xing could only use the power of the fire star aspect and the power of the star fire seed to be evenly matched with Sir Watanabe. As Yi Xing thrust out his spear, Sir Watanabe began to laugh. He could feel that the power of Yi Xing's spear was extremely powerful, enough to kill a first-class 8-star martial saint. However, it was still far from his sky-cutting sword. This collision would definitely be able to severely injure Yi Xing. Although the three swords couldn't kill Yi Xing, it was enough to severely injure Yi Xing. Yi Xing was severely injured, and was not far from death. As long as he killed Yi Xing, who would dare to laugh at his arrogant words of three swords? Since Sir Watanabe could sense the power of Yi Xing's move, Yi Xing could also sense the power of the former's sword. Yi Xing was very clear that the power of his move was much weaker. However, Yi Xing still didn't use the power of the celestial image. Firstly, although many thoughts flashed through their minds the moment they executed their moves, in reality, all of it happened in the blink of an eye. Using the power of the astral energy was too rushed. Second, Yi Xing was still confident. Sir Watanabe wanted to severely injure or even kill him with this move, but it was just a daydream. His super brain scan was not useless. The moment Sir Watanabe made his move, Yi Xing had already found the weakest part of his move. The Dark Spirit Spear was used and collided with the weakest part of the sky-cutting sword. Boom. Both moves were killing moves with shocking power. Even the weakest part of the sky-cutting sword was not inferior to Yi Xing's spear. The strong collision caused an earth-shattering explosion. The terrifying collision caused the sword and spear to explode, turning into violent star essence that rushed in all directions, causing smoke and dust to billow. In the collision, a figure was shot backward. Yi Xing's body was flying backward. Sir Watanabe sneered and shouted. "Aunt, you're seriously injured. Your death is here, haha." Hearing Sir Watanabe's cheers, the disciples of the four sects instantly understood that the person retreating in the billowing smoke and dust was Yi Xing. The disciples of the East supporting sect and the Flying Cloud sect were overjoyed and laughed. Dong Xianyue clapped her hands and praised. "Good. Senior brother Watanabe is mighty. That ant is dead." The disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spiritual Moon sect turned pale and were shocked. If Yi Xing was dead, how could they escape from Sir Watanabe's evil hands? In the blink of an eye, the billowing smoke and dust dissipated. Sir Watanabe's smile froze on his face. The disciples of the East supporting sect and the Flying Cloud sect were also stunned. Yi Xing was not injured at all. Instead, he turned into a stream of light and ran away quickly. "The third move, haha. You didn't even hurt me. How dare you say that you'll kill me in 3 moves? Ridiculous." Yi Xing's voice came from afar. Sir Watanabe was furious. 3 moves. He had attacked Yi Xing 3 times in a row, but he hadn't been able to injure Yi Xing at all. Instead, he had merely gained the upper hand, and Yi Xing had even escaped? "Aunt, do you think you can escape? I'm going to cut you into pieces, cut you into pieces." Sir Watanabe's face was livid. He roared angrily and shot forward like an arrow, chasing after Yi Xing in the distance. Sir Watanabe's speed was very fast. He was like a stream of light flashing. In a few breaths, he was 1,000 meters away. At this time, Sir Watanabe's voice came from afar. "Kill them all. Leave Emoshilan for me to enjoy." The disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spiritual Moon sect looked at each other. Yi Xing escaped? Qi Jingyang jumped up when he heard Sir Watanabe's voice. Yi Xing is a bastard. Shameless. He escaped by himself. He escaped by himself. As soon as Qi Jingyang said this, several disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spirit Moon sect looked furious. One of them said, "He's our commander. How can he escape? Damn it, damn it." Emoshilan heard Sir Watanabe's words and her face was covered with a layer of frost. She was furious. She looked around and stared at the disciples who were criticizing Yi Xing. She said coldly, "A bunch of idiots." Yi Xing lured Sir Watanabe away. "If he didn't do that, we wouldn't have a chance to live. Now that Sir Watanabe is gone, they can't threaten us." Emoshilan's words made them realize that they were safe because Yi Xing lured Sir Watanabe away. They were overjoyed. As for the words they had cursed at Yixing earlier, they had long since forgotten about it. Emoshilon shook her head and sighed. They were all human beings, but they were different. At this time, the disciples of the Dongfu sect and the Flying Cloud sect looked at the disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Flying Cloud sect with killing intent. Dong Xianyue waved his hand and said, "Surround them. Don't let any of them escape. When senior brother Watanabe comes back after killing that ant, all of them will die." With that, Dong Xuanyue's gaze landed on Emoshilon. A lewd smile appeared on his face as he continued, "Don't harm a single hair on this woman. Let me deal with her and leave her for senior brother Watanabe to enjoy." Dong Xianyue waved his hand and the disciples of the Dongfu sect and the Flying Cloud sect rushed forward. The disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spiritual Moon sect fought back. A fierce battle broke out in an instant. In the distance, Sir Watanabe was chasing Yixing like a gust of wind. He seemed to be faster, but not by much. He couldn't catch up in a short time. The two ran for dozens of miles one after the other. The distance between them gradually narrowed. Yixing crosses a mountain and stops, panting heavily. Watanabe, who is behind him, is overjoyed. Escape? Finally, he couldn't escape. Watanabe, who was at the back, couldn't see the smile on Yixing's face. Chapter 290. Author's Note. 33. For chapters completed. Looking for guaranteed monthly votes in April. Run. Keep running. Ha ha ha. Ant. You can't run anymore. In terms of strength, this young master can crush you in a matter of minutes. In terms of speed, this young master can still crush you in a matter of minutes. You are just an ant and you dare to show off in front of this young master. You're courting death. Mr. Watanabe stopped behind Yixing. He didn't rush to attack. Instead, he laughed with a mocking smile. Happy. Mr. Watanabe was very happy. Although he had belittled Yixing and called him an ant, he still valued Yixing in his heart. He knew that Yixing could defeat opponents 2 realms higher than him. In terms of challenging opponents with higher realms, Yixing was comparable to the Yin Yang young master, and was even stronger than him. But so what? Even though Yixing was stronger than him in terms of fighting those stronger than him, Yixing's cultivation was still a realm lower than his. In terms of strength, Watanabe could crush Yixing. Strength in the past was not important. Strength in the future was also not important. Only strength in the present was the most important and the most powerful. Even if he had great potential, even if he had incredible combat strength, even if he would become a powerful expert in the future, he would have nothing if he died now. Therefore, strength was the most important and the most powerful. No matter how incredible your combat strength was, no matter if you would become a powerful expert in the future, now that I'm stronger than you, I'll crush you and kill you. Mr. Watanabe didn't know about Yixing's destiny. He only knew that Yixing was a 6-star martial saint at a young age, and his strength was not inferior to an 8-star martial saint. He was a monstrous genius with incredible potential. But now he was going to kill this monstrous genius with heaven-defying potential. He was going to kill Yixing like he was stepping on an ant. Watanabe was extremely excited. Yixing turned around. His face was calm and his breathing was even. He didn't look like he was out of breath at all. On the contrary, Yixing's condition was very good. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly, carrying a trace of a smile. This smile was filled with disdain, mockery, and contempt. For some reason, Watanabe had a bad feeling when he saw Yixing's expression and Yixing's gaze. It was as if their identities had suddenly switched. He had become the prey, and Yixing had become the hunter. No. No, no, no. Young Master Watanabe shook his head and rejected this idea. I am young Master Watanabe, the top genius of the younger generation in the Qingyan region. This kid is only 17 years old, and his hair is not even fully grown yet. His cultivation is only at the 6th level of the Star Vortex realm. He is definitely not my opponent. If he is stronger than me, why does he have to run so far away? That's right, he's running. He's running here and can't run anymore. This young master can't be deceived by his pretentious act. Thinking of this, young Master Watanabe completely eliminated the bad feeling in his heart. He stared at Yixing with disdain in his eyes and chuckled. "Aunt, kneel down and beg me, kneel every 3 steps, kowtow every 9 steps, and crawl over. If you make me happy, this young master might just cripple your cultivation and spare your dog life. Hurry up, kneel down before this young master." Yixing looked at young Master Watanabe indifferently. The smile on his face deepened, and he softly spat out 2 words, "Idiot." Young Master Watanabe's eyes were filled with coldness, and his voice became gloomy. "It seems like you want to die. I'll fulfill your wish, and let you slowly enjoy the process of death." Yixing chuckled and said, "Idiot, I deliberately led you here to take your life. You don't even know that you're about to die. What kind of child-level genius are you? I think you're more like an idiot." Young Master Watanabe's heart tightened for no reason. That bad feeling came again, and it was even stronger. This made young Master Watanabe very irritated. Although he looked calm on the surface, he almost believed this feeling in his heart. If he followed the feeling in his heart, he would leave this place immediately, because Yixing gave him a very dangerous feeling. He couldn't afford to provoke him. However, on the other hand, young Master Watanabe kept eliminating these thoughts. He was the dignified young Master Watanabe, one of the 6 child-level geniuses. How could he be scared off by a kid who was a few years younger than him? Moreover, killing Yixing was his mission. If he ran away just because of this feeling in his heart, how could he explain it to his sect? Not to mention explaining it to his sect, he couldn't even get over this in his heart. If he was scared off by Yixing, wouldn't he, young Master Watanabe, be a child-level genius? Wouldn't he become a coward? Young Master Watanabe killed all the thoughts in his heart. His confidence grew stronger and stronger. He stared coldly at Yixing, and a smile appeared on his face again. "Yixing, your acting skills are really good, much better than your strength. I have to say, you're so calm that I was almost fooled by you. However, do you think you can scare me, Master Watanabe, away with just your appearance? You'd better reincarnate, and try again in your next life." The smile on young Master Watanabe's face turned into a ferocious grin. The middle-grade spiritual sword in his hand gradually shone brightly. His belief was no longer shaken. He was determined to kill Yixing. Yixing's expression was still calm. He said with a smile, "Whether you believe it or not, fight or run. You're doomed to die since you're here." As he spoke, a starlight shot up from between Yixing's eyebrows and turned into a huge black hole vortex in the sky. Young Master Watanabe felt the world turn dark in an instant. He couldn't even see his own fingers. Everything around him had turned into a world of darkness. Looking up at the huge black hole vortex that almost covered the entire dark world, Watanabe's heart skipped a beat as if it was pinched by a hand. Sir Watanabe was shocked. This is your astrology. How is it possible? How is it possible to have such an astrology?" His Tualuo celestial aspect was first-rate among the high-grade aspects. Not to mention a perfected one. Even a supremacy would not be considered inferior. However, the moment Watanabe saw this black hole vortex, he intuitively felt that his Tualuo star form was not on the same level as this black hole vortex. He had never heard of such an astrology before, so he was unable to determine the level of Yixing's astrology. All he could feel was the trembling of his soul, and the shock of his heart. At this moment, Sir Watanabe was really shocked. His heart was filled with fear. He understood that the feeling in his heart before was not from Yixing's pretense, but a real premonition of danger. Retreat. Sir Watanabe pushed his speed to the limit and retreated backward rapidly. At this moment, he only wanted to follow the feeling in his heart and run away from Yixing. As far as he could. Yixing's chuckle came. "You've entered my dark world. Can you still leave, you aunt?" Aunt. This form of address was particularly harsh in Watanabe's ears. However, he had no time to care about Yixing's address, because as soon as Yixing finished speaking, he had already attacked Sir Watanabe with his spear. Dark Spear Technique, Dark Spirit Spear. The dark spear light blended into the dark world and disappeared without a trace. However, Sir Watanabe still sensed Yixing's attack from the terrifying killing intent. Unfortunately, it was too late when he sensed it. He had no time to defend himself. Do you really think you can kill me? Young Master Watanabe shouted angrily. He threw out something, and in an instant, a light shield appeared and enveloped him. Boom! The dark spirit spear hit the formation light shield, and made an earth-shattering explosion. Layers of ripples appeared on the formation light shield, but it did not break. Yixing's pupils shrank. It was a level 2 defense formation disc. The light shield of the formation separated the darkness of the black hole world, and everything within a radius of 100 feet around Mr. Watanabe became normal again. Sir Watanabe sneered. Yixing as a child-level genius. How can I not have a life-saving method? My defense formation disc can withstand the attack of a 9-star martial saint. Don't even think about hurting me. Let's see how long your astrology can last. Let's see how long you can keep it. Let's see how you can trap me after you withdraw your astrology. Really? Are you sure I can't kill you? Yixing's cold voice sounded. The purple feather spear in his hand disappeared, and was replaced by the purple cloud bow and purple gold arrow. Chapter 291. Begging for a guaranteed monthly vote. Whoosh! Another ray of starlight flew out from between Yixing's eyebrows and turned into a huge starlight bow above Yixing. Using the Sagittarius constellation, Yixing's aura suddenly became many times sharper, as if it could pierce through the 9 heavens. Pull the bowstring and draw the bow. Whoosh! Endless star power fell from the Sagittarius constellation, causing the purple cloud bow and purple gold arrow in Yixing's hands to become incomparably bright, revealing a terrifying aura. Once this arrow was shot out, its power would definitely be extremely powerful and terrifying. Lord Watanabe, who was in the light shield of the formation, couldn't see Yixing's figure, but he felt a chill. Lord Watanabe's heart tightened. He looked up at the sky and saw the starlight bow. His heart jumped as if it was being ruthlessly squeezed by a big hand. Sagittarius. Sagittarius constellation? Lord Watanabe's face changed and he was shocked. He shouted in disbelief. This is the legendary supreme constellation. How could it appear on your body? Also, how could you have 2 constellations? Impossible. This is impossible. This is all an illusion. Yixing spat out 3 words coldly. As soon as he finished speaking, the bowstring was pulled and the purple gold arrow shot forward. A dragon roar was heard. The purple gold arrow turned into a huge green dragon and pounced on Lord Watanabe as fast as lightning. Lord Watanabe couldn't see the space outside the light shield, but he could feel a terrifying power coming to kill him. Especially the dragon roar that sounded. It made his soul tremble, and he felt like crawling on the ground. The fear in his heart only flashed for a moment before it was extinguished by Lord Watanabe. His formation plate was specially made. It could even withstand the attack of a 9-star martial saint. Yixing was only a 6-star martial saint. Lord Watanabe didn't believe that Yixing's attack power could reach the level of a 9-star martial saint. In the blink of an eye, just as Watanabe changed his mind, the Azure Dragon arrow style fiercely bombarded the light shield of the formation. Boom! The Azure Dragon collided with the light barrier of the array formation, creating a deafening explosion. Young Master Watanabe's expression had just calmed down when he was shocked by the explosion. His eyes were filled with fear. The light shield that could defend against a 9-star martial saint's attack was shattered with a loud explosion. Then the surroundings instantly turned dark. The light shield of the formation was broken. At the last moment, Watanabe seemed to see an arrow flying towards him. He could not believe that the power of this arrow was so terrifying. It was even more terrifying than the attack of a 9-star martial sage. This meant that Yixing's arrow could even kill a 9-star martial sage. The moment young Master Watanabe's array formation light shield broke apart, the moment he saw the arrow, he immediately felt goosebumps rising all over his body. Pushing his celestial essence to the limit, he activated his Tua Luo celestial avatar, and used the treasure sword in his hand to slash out in the direction of the arrow. Unfortunately, by the time he saw the arrow, it was already too late. Just as he was thinking and swinging the sword in his hand, a sharp pain came from his chest. The arrow had pierced through his chest. Whoosh! The purple gold arrow shot through young Master Watanabe's chest and came out from his back. It continued to shoot into the distance like a stream of light. A finger-sized bloody hole appeared in young Master Watanabe's chest. His body was sent flying by the force of the arrow and fell a few meters away. The arrow was aimed at young Master Watanabe's heart. If the heart was pierced, even a perfected person would die. Young Master Watanabe was just a 7-star martial saint. Needless to say, he would die without a doubt. The spiritual weapon treasure sword in his hand fell to the ground. Young Master Watanabe's vision became blurred and his consciousness became heavier. It was as if he was going to fall asleep and never wake up again. There's such a monster in this world. Young Master Watanabe used all his strength to say this sentence intermittently. As soon as he finished speaking, his chi dissipated. He was dead. Yi Xing withdrew the Sagittarius constellation and came to the side of young Master Watanabe's body. Black hole constellation, devour the mandate of heaven. Yi Xing activated the super brain scan and looked at young Master Watanabe's head. At this moment, the black hole constellation was crazily spinning and releasing a terrifying devouring power. The flame of destiny in young Master Watanabe's mind was gradually fading away. As for the flame of destiny in Yi Xing's mind, it gradually became more vigorous. Soon, the 9 orange flames merged together and became a single yellow flame. Yi Xing's destiny had a huge leap. It evolved from a martial saint destiny to a perfected person's destiny. Moreover, Yi Xing's destiny didn't stop evolving after reaching the 1-star yellow fate. The yellow flame became more and more vigorous. Soon it split into a second flame. It rose to the 2-star yellow fate. Young Master Watanabe's destiny was a 3-star yellow fate. When the 3 yellow flames in his mind were completely devoured by the black hole constellation, the yellow flame in Yi Xing's mind split into a 3rd flame and rose to the 3-star yellow fate. Yi Xing withdrew the black hole constellation, and the world of darkness disappeared. The surroundings returned to normal. Yi Xing's face revealed a satisfied smile. A 3-star yellow fate meant that as long as one had a cultivation method, they would definitely become a 3-star perfected person in this lifetime. In the 700 years since the founding of there hadn't been a second genius with such a high destiny other than the founding ancestor, perfected person Starfall. Now Yi Xing was the second. Moreover, as long as he had the black hole constellation, a 3-star fate was far from Yi Xing's limit. He could still continue to improve. As the demon star of troubled times, and a supreme one at that, Yi Xing's future was limitless. Yi Xing put away young Master Watanabe's storage ring and the dropped spiritual weapons. Then he activated the Starfire seed and burned young Master Watanabe's corpse. Whoosh! Yi Xing released his celestial essence and formed a pair of bat-shaped wings. Using the heavenly bat steps and the wind force, he was like a flying bat, streaking across the sky. With a glide, he covered several miles and followed the original path back to the mountain where he rested last night. At this moment, the battle between the 4 sects was still fierce. The East supporting sect and Flying Cloud sect's disciples only surrounded them, but didn't kill them. The Falling Star sect and Spirit Moon sect's disciples tried to break through several times but failed. The 2 sides had the same number of people and strength. Although the East supporting sect and Flying Cloud sect had the upper hand, it was impossible for them to kill the Falling Star sect and Spirit Moon sect's disciples. However, the East supporting sect and Flying Cloud sect's disciples had a plan from the beginning. They only surrounded the Falling Star sect and Spirit Moon sect's disciples to prevent them from escaping. When Watanabe returned after killing Yi Xing, they would naturally die. It's over, it's over. It's not easy for me to cultivate to this level. It's not easy for me to come to the Azure Cloud Ancient Land. Could it be that the Azure Cloud Ancient Land is going to be my burial ground? Most of the Falling Star sect and Spirit Moon sect's disciples were anxious and pessimistic. Ha 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 ha. Yi Xing, that ant, must have been killed by Watanabe. When Watanabe returns, all of you will be finished. The men will be killed on the spot, and the women will be raped before being killed. Ah. The East supporting sect and Flying Cloud sect's disciples were all excited, especially the male disciples. They stared at the beautiful female disciples of the Falling Star sect and Spirit Moon sect with lustful eyes. At this moment, a figure glided in the sky in the distance. The East Supporting Sect and Flying Cloud sect's disciples who were waiting for Watanabe's return were overjoyed. Watanabe is back. Your death is here. The East Supporting Sect and Flying Cloud sect's disciples laughed. The East Supporting Sect and Spirit Moon sect's disciples were pale and panicked. Emoshilon's eyes showed a trace of fear. Watanabe had said that he wanted to toy with her. If she fell into his hands, the consequences would be unimaginable. Emoshilon shouted, "Let's fight with them. Even if it means risking our lives, we must rush out." As soon as she said that, Emoshilon completely gave up on defense and launched a fierce attack at Dong Xianyue, who was blocking her. She used all of her trump cards. Dong Xuanyue's strength was slightly inferior to Emoshilon's, so she was forced to retreat. However, there were not many who dared to risk their lives like Emoshilon. So the enemy's encirclement was not completely broken. Whoosh! Yinfeng's figure flashed and came to Dong Xuanyue's side. He blocked Emoshilon's attack and said, "Let me deal with her. She can't escape. You go deal with that trash Marun." The disciples of the four sects couldn't see the figure clearly and thought it was Watanabe. However, Yixing could see the situation clearly and a cold light flashed in his eyes. Chapter 292. Yixing glided in the sky, rising and falling at a very fast speed. As he got closer, the disciples of Dongfu sect and Flying Cloud sect were shocked. It was not Master Watanabe but Yixing. This was totally out of their expectation. Yixing came back, but Master Watanabe was nowhere to be seen. Didn't that mean that Master Watanabe was killed by Yixing? How could this be? Realizing this, the disciples of the Dongfu sect and the Flying Cloud sect sucked in a breath of cold air, revealing looks of disbelief. The disciples of Falling Star sect and Spirit Moon sect were also shocked. However, they were not shocked, but pleasantly surprised. Since Yixing came back, there was only one result. Although this result was very surprising, the disciples of Falling Star sect and Spirit Moon sect accepted this fact more easily than the disciples of Dongfu sect and Flying Cloud sect. "Let's go!" Flying Cloud sect's first disciple, Yinfeng, shouted. At this moment, there were two handprints on his face. He was terrified of Yixing from the bottom of his heart. "Don't let them escape!" Emoshilon also shouted. Previously, they were all besieged and wanted to catch them all. Now that the situation was reversed, how could they let them escape? Seeing Yixing's figure, the disciples of Falling Star sect and Flying Cloud sect who were pessimistic and were about to surrender cheered up. Their morale was high, and they attacked the opponent like a storm. On the other hand, the disciples of the East Supporting sect and the Flying Cloud sect were shocked and terrified. Yixing's return had scared them out of their wits and made them extremely flustered. Their aura instantly plummeted, and they were on the verge of collapse. At this time, they wanted to escape, but in the face of the fierce attacks of the disciples of Falling Star sect and Flying Cloud sect, how could they escape in a hurry? Yixing's speed was very fast. When the crowd saw him clearly, the distance between them was less than 10 miles. After 2 glides, Yixing arrived in about 10 breaths. A flash of light. Yixing descended from the sky, and the dark spear light drew a straight line, penetrating hundreds of meters in an instant. The martial artists only saw a blur in front of their eyes. In the next moment, Yixing stopped in his tracks. The purple feather spear had already killed 3 enemies. 2 disciples from the Dongfu sect and 1 from the Flying Cloud sect had been killed by Yixing in a single move. Their corpses were skewered on the violet feather spear. Of these 3 people, 1 was a 6-star martial sage while the other 2 were 5-star martial sages. In any sect, they would be the core strength. However, in front of Yixing, they were completely vulnerable. As soon as Yixing arrived, he killed 3 people with a single spear strike, which made all the disciples of the Dongfu sect and the Flying Cloud sect tremble in fear. Their hearts beat so fast that they almost jumped out of their throats. The disciples of the Dongfu sect and the Flying Cloud sect were all martial saints. Although they were afraid, They were not so cowardly that they did not even dare to resist. The more they feared death, the more their desire for life was aroused. Each of them unleashed their strength to the limit, wanting to escape. Some of them succeeded, but some were still pinned down by the disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spirit Moon sect, unable to escape. Yixing used the wind force and the heavenly bat steps to the limit. His speed was as fast as lightning. He ignored the disciples of the Dongfu sect and the Flying Cloud sect who could not escape, and launched a lightning-fast attack on those who succeeded in escaping. None of the martial artists present could compete with Yixing in terms of speed. They had just escaped when they were faced with Yixing's attack, and they were already on the road to death. Yixing's figure was like lightning, and the dark spear light cut through the void. With every spear strike, an enemy fell. Puff Yixing blocked in front of Yinbin, and the violet feather spear stabbed out, directly tearing the opponent's defense, and piercing through Yinbin's heart. Even a 7-star martial sage could not block Yixing's spear strike. Yixing's gaze turned, and he locked onto his next target, Yinfeng. Although Yinfeng's strength was slightly better than Emo Shilon's, he had been trapped by Emo Shilon's desperate attacks several times. At this moment, seeing Yixing's gaze sweep over, his heart immediately turned cold. He regretted it very much. If he had known that Yixing actually had the strength to kill Lord Watanabe, he would never have dared to fight against Yixing, even if he had 1,000 times more courage. Sun Change Sword Technique, Sun in the Sky. Feeling the danger of death, Yinfeng's strength exploded to the limit. He let out a loud roar, and attacked Emo Shilon with Sun in the Sky. With the support of the power of the stars, the spiritual weapon in Yinfeng's hand shone brightly like the sun. It was unstoppable, and Emo Shilon was defeated. Yinfeng's figure flashed, and at the same time, he retreated quickly, wanting to escape. However, his speed paused, and Yixing was already in front of him. Yixing held the purple feather spear and pointed it at the sky. He stared coldly at Yinfeng, and walked over step by step. Seeing this, Emo Shilon ignored Yinfeng, and attacked the 7-star martial saint Dong Xianyue. Now several disciples of the East supporting sect and the Flying Cloud sect had already died, especially Yunbin, who was killed by Yixing, and Yinfeng was blocked by Yixing. Only Dong Xianyue was left as a 7-star martial saint, and she was powerless to reverse the situation. Whether in terms of strength or numbers, there was already a huge gap between the two sides. The disciples of the East supporting sect and the Flying Cloud sect had no way out. Let me live, and I'll give you whatever you want. Yinfeng looked at Yixing, who was walking over step by step. His heart trembled, and he did not dare to make a move. He forced himself to be calm and said, "I only want your life." Yixing's expression was calm, and his tone was cold, containing killing intent. Yinfeng's face was pale, and his breathing was rapid. He said, "No. Yixing, I offended you in the past, and I can apologize to you. Let me live, and I'll do whatever you want me to do." When he said the last 4 words, Yinfeng's body started to tremble. "I beg you." In the Flying Cloud sect, Yinfeng was a genius of the generation, and he was so high and mighty. In his entire life, he had never uttered the word beg. However, when his life was in the hands of others, he instinctively uttered it out of instinct. Although he felt that it was extremely humiliating to say it, and although he felt that it was difficult to say it, he was still afraid of death and said it. Yixing looked at Yinfeng, shook his head coldly and said, "Yinfeng, in fact, you are a piece of trash that people look down on. If you fight to the death, in my eyes, you still have some dignity. But now, you are a piece of trash that is even worse than a dog." Yinfeng's face instantly twisted, and his eyes were full of hatred. He gritted his teeth and said, "Yixing, I've already lowered my status. This is the first time in my life that I beg someone, and you dare to humiliate me like this. Aren't you afraid that I'll die with you?" Yixing shook his head, and continued to say, "Piece of trash." Ah! Yinfeng's eyes turned blood red, and he was completely furious. "Then let's die together." Whoosh! In an instant, endless flames gushed out of Yinfeng's body, and his aura soared several times, rising to the level of an 8-star martial saint. Yinfeng burned her celestial essence, her energy, and her life, to perform a suicidal secret technique. burning everything and bursting out the most brilliant attack. This secret technique could only be practiced by warriors of the fire attribute. Sword of Dusk. Yunfeng roared loudly, and it was the last roar of his life. After burning everything, his life was about to come to an end. Yunfeng performed the Sword of Dusk at this moment, which was suitable for the essence of the Sword of Dusk, so the power of this sword technique was multiplied. Yixing instantly activated his super brain to scan. Yunfeng's attack was close to Master Watanabe's strongest attack, when he didn't use his astrology. His attack power was close to first class among the 8-star martial saints. Master Watanabe was no match for Yixing if he didn't use his astrology, and Yunfeng was no match for him at this moment. Dark Spirit Spear. Yixing scanned the weakest point of his opponent's attack, and he struck out with his spear. Pushing his celestial essence to the limit, the force of darkness, the force of wind, and the force of fire all integrated into this move. Yixing also unleashed his strongest attack. Boom! The sword light and the spear light collided, and heaven and earth shook. The violent airflow exploded, and the sand and stones within a radius of hundreds of feet were sent flying. In the explosion, Yunfeng's body suddenly shook, as if he was hit by a fierce horse, and his body shot backward. In the air, he couldn't control the burning star essence in his body anymore, and it directly exploded. Sparks flew, and his whole body exploded into pieces. Yunfeng's attack was a suicide attack. If he won, he would die, but if he lost, he would die faster. Yunfeng died, and the battle on the other side also came to an end. Under the suppression of absolute strength, the disciples of the Dongfu sect and the Flying Cloud sect were all annihilated. Today was the first, an important day to fight for the monthly votes. According to the original plan, I started writing in the morning, and I had to finish the 4th update during the day. Sigh. But after I finished writing the first chapter, I saw the monthly votes, and my heart instantly turned cold, as if someone poured a bucket of cold water on my head. On the first day of the month, after the 4th update, the monthly votes of the Archer God plummeted, and he was almost out of the top 50. My eyes were wet, and my mind was blank. The passion of writing disappeared instantly. Was the Archer God born to be behind others, and could only pursue his life? Why was that? I don't know. I've been writing with all my might, I've been working hard, but the monthly votes just keep dropping. I really don't know. Sigh. Even if the monthly votes were bad, there was nothing I could do. I still had to write. I gritted my teeth and forced myself to write. Although the speed was slow and the time was late, the 4th update would still be available today. I really hoped that after I worked hard, I could have the support of the readers and get a monthly vote. Chapter 293. The battle stopped. Everywhere was a scene of devastation. Traces of attacks could be seen everywhere, whether it was on the ground or on the rocks. The corpses of the disciples of the Dongfu sect and the Flying Cloud sect were scattered everywhere. The ground was stained with blood. It was a ghastly sight. If it was on Earth, such a scene would definitely be shocking. Most people would be scared out of their wits and even vomit. However, in the Star Continent, the world of martial artists was full of killing and blood. Such scenes were common. The disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spiritual Moon sect were used to it. Only a few disciples who had never ventured out felt the blood and terror. If Yixing had seen such a scene when he first arrived in the Star Continent, he would definitely be shocked. However, he had already experienced many life and death situations. Looking at the scene in front of him, his heart was as calm as water. There was no ripple. It even aroused his indifference to life. In the Star Continent, in the world of martial artists, one could only be indifferent to life. If one was sad because of the death of someone unrelated to them, then one would have to live in sadness every day and night. One could only be indifferent to the death of someone unrelated to them. It was even more indifferent to the death of one's enemies. No matter how much love one had, it was not the right to be emotional about the death of one's enemies. Yixing took the storage rings of the enemies he killed one by one. These were all spoils of war. The other disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Flying Cloud sect did the same. There were even 2 disciples of the Falling Star sect who were arguing about the ownership of the storage ring of a disciple of the Dongfu sect. Senior Brother Qi, I killed this person. Zhao Dong, who was ranked 8th among the core disciples of the stood beside the corpse of a disciple of the Dongfu sect, and looked at Qi Jingyang. Qi Jingyang coldly glanced at Zhao Dong and said, Zhao Dong, if I hadn't stabbed this kid before, you wouldn't have been able to kill him with your mediocre skills. Move aside, his storage ring is mine. Zhao Dong was obviously a little weak in front of Qi Jingyang's strength. However, he was unwilling to give up a storage ring that contained the things of the Dongfu sect disciple. Zhao Dong pursed his lips and didn't back down. He said, Senior Brother Qi, you've already taken 2 storage rings. I haven't even taken one. When we were surrounded just now, I even blocked a sword for you. Look. As he spoke, Zhao Dong pointed at his left shoulder. There was a sword wound there, and the flesh was torn open. The wound was very deep. Qi Jingyang glared at Zhao Dong. Or I will beat you every time I see you. Everyone's eyes were attracted by Qi Jingyang's voice. The disciples of the Spirit Moon sect furrowed their brows. They couldn't stand it anymore. However, the quarrel was between the disciples of the Fallen Star sect, and the Spirit Moon sect had no right to interfere. Just as Zhao Dong was about to grit his teeth and swallow his anger, Yixing's figure flashed like a stream of light and appeared in front of Qi Jingyang. Yixing's palm arrived and slapped Qi Jingyang's face. Qi Jingyang was only a 6-star martial saint. Although his cultivation was already at the peak of the 6th stage, a 7-star martial saint had been sent flying by Yixing's slap. Qi Jingyang screamed as he was sent flying even further. You're worse than a pig and a dog. You only know how to show off in front of your fellow disciples. Yixing said coldly. He looked away from Qi Jingyang and waved his hand at Zhao Dong. Take it yourself. The hearts of the Falling Star sect disciples jumped. They thought that among all the disciples, only Yixing dared to attack Qi Jingyang. The others did not have the courage. As for the Spirit Moon sect disciples, they were inexplicably happy and smiled when they saw Qi Jingyang being sent flying. Zhao Dong swallowed his saliva and widened his eyes. When he heard Yixing's words, he quickly reacted and bowed to Yixing. Thank you, Senior Brother Yixing. Then, he took the storage ring of the Dongfu sect disciple beside him. Yixing did not look at Qi Jingyang again. He waved his hand at the crowd and said, Let's continue. In the distance, Qi Jingyang clenched his fists and his eyes were filled with hatred and anger. However, no matter how strong his anger was, he did not dare to show it in front of Yixing. He did not even dare to look at Yixing. To deal with arrogant people, the only way was to suppress them with absolute strength, and then be more arrogant than them. This way, they would not even dare to fart. The disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spirit Moon sect continued to go deeper into the Azure Cloud Ancient Land under the lead of Yixing. The Flying Cloud sect had secretly colluded with the Dongfu sect to catch all the disciples of the Falling Star sect and the Spirit Moon sect in one fell swoop. They would never have thought that it would be their own disciples who would be caught in one fell swoop. On the 3rd day, Yixing and the others had already gone deep into the Azure Cloud Ancient Land. Along the way, they did not meet anyone other than the disciples of the Dongfu sect. The disciples were scattered here, looking for opportunities on their own. Some formed small teams and some went alone. Although many disciples wanted to team up with Yixing, Yixing rejected them all. He wanted to go to the Cumulus Valley alone. The Cumulus Valley was the place where Zishanho had obtained the Eye of Blue Cloud. Yixing was going there to obtain the complete Eye of Blue Cloud. This was a supreme grade spiritual martial art. Yixing did not want anyone to know about it. A supreme grade spiritual martial art was too precious. If the news was leaked, it would cause endless trouble. This was a treasure that could attract the attention of the 9 upper sects. Yixing knew the location of the Cumulus Valley. The entrance he chose was the entrance that Zishanho had used to enter the Azure Cloud Ancient Land 15 years ago. He only knew the way to the Cumulus Valley from this entrance. The Azure Cloud Ancient Land was very vast. Zishanho did not know the specific geographical environment of the Azure Cloud Ancient Land. If Yixing had entered from another entrance, he might not have found the Cumulus Valley. After parting with the group, Yixing spent another 2 days to reach the Cumulus Valley. When he arrived, Yixing knew why Zishanho had named the valley as the Cumulus Valley. It was because the sky above the valley was completely covered by clouds. The surrounding sky was spotless. It was as if all the clouds in the nearby sky were squeezed into the sky above the valley. Moreover, because there were too many clouds, some of them had already landed on the ground. Most of the valley was covered by clouds and could not be seen clearly. It was very appropriate to call it the Cumulus Valley. Yixing walked along the path and entered the valley. He activated his superbrain to scan. It was not that there was nothing in the clouds, but it was also not that there was anything. It was just that there were different overlapping spaces. In the Cumulus Valley there was a chaotic space. Yixing walked into the area covered by clouds and entered the place where the spaces overlapped. The scene around him suddenly changed, and he appeared in front of a big hall. The big hall was about 100 meters tall and had 3 floors. It was called the Treasure Hall. In front of him was a door that was about 70 feet tall. Inside and outside the door, there was nothing. Yixing walked forward and entered the Treasure Hall. Zishanho had obtained the first part of the Azure Cloud Eye on the first floor. The dangers on the first floor were all cleared by Zishanho. The second part of the Azure Cloud Eye, was on the second floor of the Treasure Hall. Zishanho's strength was limited back then, and he could not fight his way up. Yixing came to the right rear of the hall. There was a staircase that led to the second floor. The staircase was very wide, about 30 feet tall. According to Zishanho, in the middle of the staircase, there were 2 puppet guards that were equivalent to early 8-star martial saints. He had already killed them. However, at the end of the staircase, there were 2 puppet guards that were equivalent to peak 8-star martial saints. He had tried a few times but could not defeat them. Instead, he had almost lost his life. Yixing walked up the staircase. After going around a corner, he saw the 2 puppet guards at the end of the staircase. The puppet guards were about 2 meters tall. One of them used a saber, and the other a sword. One of them was on the left and the other on the right. They guarded the 2 sides of the staircase. The way of puppets belonged to the study of mechanisms, and was a branch of the study of mechanisms. It was very rare in martial arts. There were not many martial artists in the Azure Cloud region who knew about mechanisms. Those who knew about the way of puppets were even more unheard of. The 2 puppet guards were equivalent to 8-star martial saints. Yixing did not feel any pressure at all. Taking out the purple feather spear, Yixing strode forward. When Yixing was about 10 feet away from the 2 puppet guards, the eyes of the 2 puppet guards lit up, as if they were alive. Chapter 294. Whoosh! Whoosh! Sword and saber lights flashed as the 2 guardian puppets attacked Yixing at the same time as they woke up. The combined attack of 2 peak 8-star martial saints was as powerful as young Master Watanabe, using his astrology. Yixing Chao's brain had already activated its scanning mode, and he was able to clearly see the movements of the 2 guardian puppets. His purple feather spear unleashed a burst of black spear aura toward the 2 guardian puppets with boundless power. The power of darkness, the power of wind, and the power of fire. Each spear attack contained 3 different powers of the heavens and earth. It was extremely fast and powerful. The attacks of the 2 guardian puppets were very direct. They either hacked or chopped. The more direct the attack, the faster it was. If Yixing's wind power had not reached the intricate realm, he would not have been able to keep up with the attacks of the 2 guardian puppets. Ding ding ding. Ding 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 ding. The purple feather spear and the saber and sword of the guardian puppets were constantly clashing. Sometimes, they would even clash 2 or 3 times at the same time. It could be seen how fast their attacks were. With such a fast attack, even though there were many flaws in the moves, the 2 puppet guards worked together and cooperated with each other to cover up the flaws in each other's attacks. Although it wasn't to the extent of being flawless, it was still extremely difficult to attack their flaws. Facing the lightning-fast attacks of the 2 guardian puppets, Yixing could only keep up with their rhythm and keep waving his spear to block. If Yixing used his astrology power or archery skills, it would not be difficult for him to destroy the 2 guardian puppets. However, Yixing was happy to fight with the two guardian puppets head-on. After becoming a 6-star martial saint, Yixing's middle-level spiritual martial force had a lot of room for improvement. Now, fighting head-on with the two guardian puppets had a significant effect on improving his dark spirit spear art. Reaching the second level wasn't a problem for Yixing. The improvement of his dark spirit spear art was what Yixing truly valued. After confirming that he wanted to practice with the two guardian puppets, Yixing stopped scanning with his superbrain. Instead, he used his black hole astrology. In the dark space, Yixing's senses were sharper, and his reaction was faster. The most important thing was that Yixing's dark spirit spear art was much faster in the world of darkness. Time flew by, and Yixing continued to fight. His celestial essence and spiritual energy were constantly consumed. It wasn't until Yixing felt exhausted that he started to retreat. When Yixing retreated to the first floor of the main hall, the two puppet guards stopped attacking and returned to their original positions. The guardian puppet's range of movement was limited. Because of this, Yixing dared to fight it until he was on the verge of collapse. On the first floor of the main hall, Yixing sat cross-legged and took out low-rank celestial crystals to cultivate and restore his celestial essence. At this time, his body was like a dry sponge, and the celestial essence was like water. When Yixing cultivated, his body crazily absorbed the celestial essence. While restoring his celestial essence, Yixing also felt that the strength of his celestial essence was still increasing. His middle-level falling star art had been cultivated to the highest level, and his celestial essence was still strengthening during cultivation. From this, it could be seen that inheritances like martial arts didn't have a limit. After martial arts reached perfection, there was still the transformation realm. When one cultivated inheritances to the highest level, there was still room for improvement. Moreover, during the process of draining and slowly recovering his celestial essence, Yixing felt that his physical strength was also improving. His physical strength had already surpassed that of other martial saints, but now the gap was widening. After recovering, Yixing continued to move forward, fighting with the two guardian puppets and continuing to cultivate the dark spirit spear art. Time passed slowly. Yixing and the two guardian puppets went through one battle after another, and his attainments in the dark spirit spear art improved by leaps and bounds. When he was tired, he would use low-rank celestial crystals to restore his celestial essence. When he was hungry, he would eat the dry food he carried with him. Occasionally, he would roast the tender meat of the crystal fire beast or the frost python. However, such top-quality ingredients should not be eaten frequently. If eaten continuously, even the best ingredients would become ordinary, which was simply a waste of God's gifts. Therefore, after feasting for a period of time in the stellar hall, Yixing decided that he would eat less of both the crystal fire beast's tender meat and the frost python's meat, so that every time he ate them, he would have a rich aftertaste. Yixing had a lot of tender meat of the crystal fire beast and the frost python. Even though he had eaten a lot in the Star Hall and later shared some with his two masters, Lin Fenghua and Zishanho, he still had a lot. 9 days later, Yixing's dark spirit spear art had reached the perfection realm, which took less time than Yixing's. One reason was because Yixing's cultivation was higher, and the other was because Yixing's wind force had reached the refinement realm, which allowed him to have better control over his moves. With the perfection realm of the dark spirit spear art, the power of the dark spirit spear art had increased by another level. Yixing easily destroyed the two guardian puppets in a head-on battle, and ascended to the second floor. Yixing's pupils shrank. There were a total of 5 guardian puppets on the second floor. The 2 at the front were equivalent to early 9-star martial saints. The 2 in the middle were equivalent to late 9-star martial saints, and the last one was equivalent to a peak 9-star martial saint. Behind the peak 9-star martial sage puppet guard, there was a stone platform, which was covered by a light shield. On the stone platform, there was a scroll that was emitting light. Yixing scanned it and found that it was not a physical scroll, but a body of energy. Yixing's heart skipped a beat. This scroll was very likely the second volume of the Eye of Clear Cloud, the Eye of Cloud Pupil. In order to obtain this scroll, he had to first break the light shield of the formation. In order to break the light shield, he had to first kill the 5 guardian puppets. Yixing felt that it was a pity. If this scroll was real, he could directly scan the contents of the scroll. As for the energy body, Yixing could not scan the contents at all. He could only scan that this energy body was a power that he did not understand. Yixing took out the purple cloud bow and the purple gold arrow. In order to deal with the 5 guardian puppets, who were equivalent to 9-star martial saints, Yixing had to use all his trump cards. Black hole astrology, Sagittarius astrology, flame astrology. Yixing used the 3 astrology at the same time, and exploded with a monstrous aura. The purple cloud bow was drawn and the purple gold arrow was knocked. Yixing used the 4 symbols arrow technique, and the arrow immediately broke through the air. Vermilion bird arrow technique. The arrow turned into a burning vermilion bird and instantly shot at the head of a guardian puppet, who was equivalent to an early 9-star martial saint. There was a loud boom. The puppet guard's head was struck by the arrow, and the terrifying force exploded its head into smithereens. A guardian puppet was destroyed. This loud sound alarmed the other guardian puppets. Their eyes lit up and they all woke up. However, the aura of Yixing's attack enveloped these guardian puppets. They all fell into a world of darkness and did not know where Yixing was. Yixing drew the bow again. This arrow destroyed the second guardian puppet, who was equivalent to an early 9-star martial saint. Soon, the 3rd arrow was shot. The 4th arrow. The 5th arrow. The purple cloud bow was a top mid-grade spiritual bow. In addition to the power of the Sagittarius astrology and the 4 symbols arrow technique, the arrows shot by Yixing were extremely powerful. When Yixing was a 5-star martial saint, Zishanho had said that with Yixing's attainments in archery, he could use the purple cloud bow to kill a 9-star martial saint. Now that Yixing was a 6-star martial saint, killing a 9-star martial saint was naturally not a problem. Yixing even felt that it was hard to say if a half-step enlightened being could block his arrows. 2 arrows of the vermilion bird arrow style, 2 arrows of the white tiger arrow style, and 1 arrow of the azure dragon arrow style. The 5 guardian puppets were all taken care of. The danger on the 2nd floor of the treasure hall was gone. Yixing scanned the entire 2nd floor. After confirming that there were no more dangers, he took a big step forward and came to the front of the stone platform. He took out the purple feather spear and stabbed it. The light shield of the array was instantly pierced through. The crack expanded and disappeared without a trace. The glowing scroll on the stone platform flew up on its own and turned into a ray of light, flying into Yixing's mind. Yixing's eyes lit up. It was indeed the 2nd half of the Eyes of Azure Cloud, the Eye of Cloud. When combined with the Eye of Azure Cloud in his mind, it would be the complete supreme grade spiritual martial skill, the Eyes of Azure Cloud. Yixing was instantly excited. Since entering the Azure Cloud ancient land, he had been looking forward to the moment when he could obtain the complete Eyes of Azure Cloud. He had only been in the Azure Cloud ancient land for half a month, and he had already done it. Of course, he was very excited. A supreme grade spiritual martial skill was a peerless martial skill that only a superior 1-star sect would have. Even the top 10 sects in the Azure Cloud region did not have such a martial skill. From now on, Yixing had it. Chapter 295. In his mind, the inheritance of the Eyes of Azure Eyes and Eyes of Cloud Eyes merged to form the complete Eyes of Azure Clouds. Yixing felt something and immediately sat down. Calming his mind, he closed his eyes and meditated. His superbrain was working quickly to analyze the Eyes of Azure Clouds and slowly cultivate. Yixing sat there for 3 days and 3 nights. On the 4th day, Yixing opened his eyes. There was a flash of azure light in his eyes. Then he felt a little hazy as if there was a layer of mist covering his eyes. Yixing felt something and completed the transformation of the Eyes of Azure Eyes to Eyes of Cloud Eyes. From now on, his eye technique was no longer a middle spiritual martial art, but an extreme spiritual martial art. Of course, Yixing's cloud pupil was only at the beginning. It was not even at the beginner level yet. With his current cultivation, it was already a miracle that he could complete the transformation from green pupil to cloud pupil. The eyes of azure clouds had a great effect on demonic beasts. When Yi Xing's eye technique turned into eyes of cloud eyes, it meant that some level 3 demonic beasts would be affected, or even controlled by Yi Xing's eye technique. Level 3 demonic beasts were equivalent to astral realm enlightened masters. In other words, if there were level 3 demonic beasts nearby, Yi Xing could control them to fight against astral realm enlightened masters. For a 6-star martial sage, this was an extremely heaven-defying method. Yi Xing stood up with a smile on his face. He was very satisfied with the progress of the eyes of azure clouds. From the outside, the treasure hall has 3 floors. This is only the 2nd floor and there is already a complete extreme spiritual martial art, the eyes of azure clouds. What will be on the 3rd floor? Yi Xing thought to himself as he looked at the staircase leading to the 3rd floor. Just like the 1st floor, the stairs were on the right. There were no puppet guards between the 2nd floor and the 3rd floor. Yi Xing easily reached the 3rd floor. The layout of the 3rd floor was similar to the 2nd floor. There were also 5 puppet guards. At the end of the floor was a stone platform. On the stone platform, there was a glowing object that was surrounded by a light shield. However, when Yi Xing scanned the 5 guardian puppets with his superbrain, his pupil shrank, and his heart skipped a beat. These 5 guardian puppets were all half-step Taoist masters. The 5 guardian puppets stood in a 5-pointed star formation. The distance between them wasn't too far. Compared to the 5 guardian puppets on the 2nd floor, they were much closer. It was very likely that attacking one of them would cause the other 4 to attack as well. If it was just one puppet guard that was equivalent to a half-step enlightened being, Yi Xing would be confident in killing it. However, if there were 5 of them, then Yi Xing would feel immense pressure. Unable to think of a way to deal with the 5 guardian puppets, Yi Xing shifted his gaze to the stone platform at the end of the hall. He scanned the glowing items on the stone platform. Yi Xing's heart thumped violently once again. His eyes were filled with incomparable shock and joy. The item on the stone platform was different from the one on the 2nd floor. It was not an energy body, but a physical treasure. It was a supreme-grade spiritual artifact. If it was a weapon, it could be called a spiritual weapon. However, if it was not a weapon, it could only be called a spiritual artifact. The physical artifact on the stone platform was not a weapon but a pair of wings. The wings were green in color, and they were only the size of a palm. Yi Xing was very clear about what a wing-shaped spiritual artifact meant. It was a flying spiritual artifact. If a martial artist wanted to fly in the air with their own strength, they would have to reach the venerable realm first. When martial sages and enlightened beings flew in the air, they could not be considered flying but gliding. However, a flying spiritual artifact could allow a martial artist below the venerable realm to fly in the air. As long as they had an endless supply of celestial essence, they could fly for thousands of miles, tens of thousands of miles, or even further. There was an essential difference between flying and gliding. Moreover, a flying spiritual artifact had another important function, which was to increase one's speed. For a short period of time, one's speed could be increased to an astonishing level. For a long-distance flight, one's speed would be much faster than gliding. Yi Xing's speed was incomparably fast. He was definitely at the top of the martial sages. If he had a flying spiritual artifact, his speed would be even more shocking. Anyone below the enlightened being level would not even be able to touch the corner of his clothes. However, the flying spiritual artifact in front of him was a top-grade spiritual artifact. The increase in speed was even more amazing. If Yi Xing obtained it, perhaps even an enlightened being would not be able to match his speed. Yi Xing looked at the shining flying spiritual artifact on the stone platform. He was reluctant to look away. Of course, Yi Xing would not give up on such a treasure. However, if he wanted to obtain this pair of wings, he would have to first challenge the 5 guardian puppets. The 5 guardian puppets were equivalent to half-step enlightened beings. This made Yi Xing frown. The chances of him destroying the 5 guardian puppets were almost 0. Yi Xing stood beside the stairs. His superbrain was operating at an extremely fast speed. In an instant, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. He was trying to think of a way to obtain the flying spiritual artifact. Since he couldn't defeat the 5 guardian puppets, was it possible to bypass the 5 guardian puppets' defense and directly obtain the air transportation spiritual artifact? If he was fast enough, it was possible. However, what if he was not fast enough and was surrounded by the 5 guardian puppets? Being surrounded by the 5 guardian puppets would mean losing his life. As Yixing was surrounded, his eyes suddenly lit up. He remembered the 2 guardian puppets at the entrance of the 2nd floor. As long as he ran out of the range of the stairs, they would stop and return to their original position. Yixing thought that the guardian puppets on the 3rd floor should have a limited range. If he could not hold on and escape to the 2nd floor, the guardian puppets would not chase after him. Then he would have a way out. Let's give it a try first. If I'm fast enough, I'll bypass the guardian puppets and obtain the flying spiritual artifact. If I'm not fast enough, I can use these guardian puppets to practice the heavenly bat steps. If my mastery of the heavenly bat steps is high enough and I'm fast enough, I'll definitely be able to bypass the 5 guardian puppets and obtain the flying spiritual artifact. Yixing thought for a while and made up his mind. Standing at the edge of the stairs, Yixing took out the spirit pattern bow and ebony arrow and shot an arrow at one of the guardian puppets. When one of the guardian puppets was attacked, all the other guardian puppets woke up. Their eyes lit up and the guardian puppet that was attacked was the first to rush at Yixing. Yixing immediately used the heavenly bat steps and ran up the stairs to the 2nd floor. In the end, Yixing found that the guardian puppets did not chase up the stairs. He stopped for a while and did not see any of the guardian puppets come down. He was sure that he did not need to run to the 2nd floor. He only needed to run up the stairs and the guardian puppets would stop attacking. In this way he would be safer. Running up the stairs was obviously easier than running to the 2nd floor. Yixing returned to the 3rd floor, and the 5 guardian puppets returned to their original positions. Whoosh! A ray of starlight rushed out from between Yixing's eyebrows, and the surroundings suddenly turned dark. Yixing used the black hole astrology. In the world of darkness, Yixing's reaction was the most sensitive. Then Yixing used the Sagittarius astrology and the flame astrology. At this time, Yixing took out the purple cloud bow and the purple gold arrow. Now that he had a way out, Yixing wanted to try and see if he could kill the guardian puppets that were equivalent to half-step perfected persons. He drew the bow and released the arrow. The purple gold arrow shot out in an instant and turned into a roaring azure dragon. 4 symbols arrow technique, azure dragon arrow style. 3 kinds of astrology, 3 kinds of worldly momentum, the power of the 2nd realm of archery, and the 4 symbols arrow technique at the greater success stage. All the power was contained in this arrow. Yixing shot out the strongest arrow. This arrow was enough to kill any 9-star martial saint. However, Yixing's target was not only equivalent to a 9-star martial saint, but a half-step perfected person. A half-step perfected person's celestial essence had begun to transform into astral energy. Their strength was much higher than a 9-star martial saint. Just the terrifying killing intent of this arrow alone made the target feel it and wake up. The treasure sword in its hand instantly slashed out an astral sword. Clang! The azure dragon's shadow was torn apart by the astral sword. The sword instantly slashed the purple gold arrow, causing the arrow to change direction, and its power to be reduced by more than half. Even so, the purple gold arrow still carried terrifying power as it shot into the puppet guard's body, causing an explosion. The guardian puppet retreated a few steps. The place where the arrow hit had a fist-sized piece blown off. However, this was not a vital part, and the guardian puppet was not made of flesh and blood. Therefore, this did not affect the guardian puppet's movement and strength. Today's update is a little late, sorry. Well, let me be honest with you, brothers. I went to watch the movie Wolf Warriors during the day. This is a movie written by Chidian's platinum author, Dancing Enchantress. It should be the first big movie with elements of web novels. I've been looking forward to it for a long time. When it was released today, I couldn't wait to watch it. It really lived up to my expectations. Well, after watching the movie, I was intoxicated by the movie for a long time. It wasn't until the next day that I recovered and started to write again. Today's update is a little difficult. There will definitely be a 3rd update. Is there a 4th update? after the third update. Will there still be time? Today's monthly votes are a little bleak. I dropped a few places on the ranking list. I thought I would be able to break 200 votes today, but it's so far away. Brothers, don't hide the monthly votes in your hands. Let the Archer God try again. If the monthly votes break 200 today, I won't sleep tonight. I'll write the fourth update even if I have to stay up all night. Chapter 296. If it was a half-step martial sage, Yixing's arrow would definitely injure him severely. If Yixing continued to shoot arrows from a distance, he would have a high chance of killing his opponent. However, it was a different story if his target was a puppet. The puppet did not have the problem of being injured and quickly charged at Yixing. Furthermore, this was the treasure hall. There was not much space and Yixing did not have enough distance to use his archery skills. Facing the puppet's attack, Yixing could only use the Heavenly Bat movement technique to dodge. Yixing's Heavenly Bat movement technique had reached great perfection. Together with the wind force of the minute subtlety, his speed surpassed that of martial sages. Even if it was an attack from a half-step martial sage, it would not be difficult for him to dodge it. With a so sound, Yixing's figure flashed and dodged the puppet's attack. Although the other four puppet had woken up long ago, they did not notice Yixing's figure in the world of darkness. At this moment, Yixing's body moved. The puppet's reaction to any movement was extremely sensitive. 4 astral swords chopped towards Yixing at almost the same time. Dodging one puppet's attack was easy. However, dodging 4 puppets' attack was a little difficult. Although the 4 astral swords chopped in the same direction, their angles were completely different. They immediately sealed off most of Yixing's escape routes. However, the wind force of the minute subtlety allowed him to move exceptionally quickly in a small area. As Yixing's figure flashed, it looked as if he was struck by one of the astral swords. However, in reality it was only an afterimage. His real body had already dodged to the side. Xiao 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 xiao. The 5 puppets' attacks were swift and fierce. Their astral swords chopped towards Yixing one after another. Yixing could only push his speed to the limit and use all his strength to dodge the puppets' attacks. Although the pressure was great, he still managed to endure the attacks of the 5 puppets' attacks. This was naturally due to Yixing's speed. However, the black hole astrology was also very important. Yixing was in the world of darkness. The darkness was like his sense of touch. Yixing could clearly sense the attacks of the 5 puppets' attacks and predict the enemy's moves. Other martial sages or half-step martial sages would not be able to endure the attacks of the 5 puppets' attacks even if they had Yixing's speed. In the beginning, Yixing dodged the attacks of the 5 puppets' attacks in a rather difficult and hurried manner. However, as time passed, Yixing gradually adapted to the attacks of the 5 puppets' attacks. Although he still could not break through the defense of the 5 puppets' attacks, using them to practice the Heavenly Bat footwork was not a problem at all. The improvement of the Heavenly Bat footwork was faster than the Dark Spirit spear art. The wind force of the minute subtlety realm was extremely useful for the cultivation of Qigong. After all, ordinary martial artists could only comprehend the wind force to the minute subtlety realm after becoming a 7-star martial sage. However, Yixing was only a 6-star martial sage. Yixing used the wind force of the minute subtlety realm to cultivate a middle-grade spirit martial art. It was like an adult learning the knowledge of a child. Of course, the speed was very fast. Especially in this kind of crisis where one's potential was forced out, the effect of Yixing's Heavenly Bat footwork was much better than usual. If Yixing's celestial essence and physical strength were almost exhausted, he would retreat to the stairs and the 5 puppets would immediately return to their original positions. After recovering his celestial essence and physical strength, Yixing would go up to attack the puppets' guards and continue to cultivate the Heavenly Bat footwork. In the blink of an eye, 4 days had passed. Yixing's Heavenly Bat footwork had a qualitative breakthrough and reached the perfection realm. Compared to the Dark Spirit spear art, the Heavenly Bat footwork took more than half the time. From this, it could be seen that the wind force of the minute subtlety realm was much more useful for the cultivation of the Heavenly Bat footwork than for the Dark Spirit spear art. The perfection realm of the heavenly bat footwork was comparable to a small success upper-grade spirit martial art qigong. Coupled with the wind force of the minute subtlety realm, Yixing's speed was even faster than that of ordinary sages. Previously, Yixing could withstand the attacks of the 5 puppets' guards. Now, with his speed greatly increased, dodging the attacks of the 5 puppets' guards was even easier. On the 3rd floor, Yixing's figure flickered, and the attacks of the 5 puppets' guards all missed. Yixing seemed to be at ease under the attacks of the 5 puppets' guards. He simply withdrew the black hole astrology and no longer used the dark world to sense the attacks of the puppets' guards. This undoubtedly increased the difficulty of the battle by a lot. Sure enough, without the advantage of being able to predict the enemy's movements, Yixing suddenly felt the pressure suddenly increase. It was much more difficult to dodge the sudden attacks. But even so, Yixing could still persist under the joint attacks of the 5 puppets' guards. Yixing opened the superbrain scan and scanned the puppets' guards in his field of vision. It also achieved the effect of predicting the enemy's movements, so the pressure on him was reduced a lot. However, the attacks coming from behind Yixing couldn't be detected by Yixing's scan. Therefore, with the superbrain scanning mode, the pressure was still greater than in the dark world. At this moment, Yixing's movement technique was so fast that he could basically ignore the attacks of the 5 guardian puppets. He lured the 5 guardian puppets to the vicinity of the stairs. Then, his figure suddenly flashed and with a long-distance movement, he instantly appeared in front of the stone platform enveloped by the array formation. Boom! The purple feather spear appeared in Yixing's hand. With a thrust of the spear, the light shield of the formation shattered. Yixing's hand was as fast as lightning. He reached out and grabbed the pair of blue wings. The 5 guards attacked Yixing from behind at the same time. They attacked Yixing from 5 different directions. 5 energy swords slashed down, making it almost impossible for him to dodge. However, Yixing's current speed was godlike when compared to martial saints and half-step perfected masters. In the nick of time, Yixing's body shot out and turned into a phantom. He leapt to the bottom of the hall and dodged all the attacks of the 5 guards. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The 5 guardian puppets reacted extremely quickly. 5 energy swords instantly shot up from below. One of them shot towards Yixing while the other 4 sealed off his escape routes. Yixing was in the air and had nowhere to borrow strength. But he suddenly shifted to the side and dodged the sure-kill attack. He even dodged the blind spot of the other 4 energy swords. The wind force of the minute realm allowed one to move irregularly within a small area. There was no need to borrow strength. The opponent's attack could also reach the minute realm. Otherwise, they would not be able to catch up with the instantaneous movement of the body. After dodging 2 consecutive attacks, the attacks of the 5 guardian puppets were exhausted and came to an end. Yixing, however, took a long breath and did not slow down at all. He turned into a streak of light and flew towards the rear right of the 3rd floor. Yixing's original plan was to return to the 2nd floor after obtaining the air transportation spirit tool. However, when he obtained the air transportation spirit tool, a door of light appeared at the rear right of the 3rd floor. It was clear that there was still space behind the door of light. Yixing had already obtained such great benefits on the 3rd floor. What kind of treasures would there be on the 3rd floor? Yixing naturally wanted to take a look. The attacks of the 5 guardian puppets only paused for a moment before they charged at Yixing again. However, Yixing directly rushed into the light gate, and the 5 sword auras all slashed at the air. Yixing thought that behind the door of light would be a hidden layer of the treasure hall that could not be seen from the outside. However, after he passed through the door of light, he was no longer in the treasure hall. Instead, he was in a cavern hall. This cavern hall had a circumference of 10 zhang. It was unknown which mountain it was located in, but there was only a single tunnel leading to it. Yixing activated his ultra-dissociation scan and observed his surroundings. After confirming that there was nothing unusual, he turned his attention to the Supreme-Grade Air Transportation Spirit Tool in his hand. The Supreme-Grade Air Transportation Spirit Tool was forged from green metal. There were patterns of clouds on it. It shone brightly and looked very beautiful. Yixing was still a little confused as to how to use this supreme-grade air transportation spirit tool. After thinking for a while, he bit his finger and dripped his blood onto the supreme-grade air transportation spirit tool. A strange feeling suddenly appeared in Yixing's heart. He felt as if he and this supreme-grade air transportation spirit tool were connected by flesh and blood. This feeling grew stronger and stronger. Finally, the supreme-grade air transportation spirit tool in his hand disappeared. It actually merged with Yixing's body. Some information suddenly appeared in Yixing's mind. He knew the name of this pair of wings: Azure Cloud Wings. You're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.